everyone, and welcome to CommanderCast episode 306. We're your weekly source for community strategy and technology, hosted on CommanderSociety.com and our home site, CommanderCast.com. And this week, we have a very special episode. Folks, we've been saying we were going to do this forever, and today is finally the day. We're going to talk about some art on this episode. It's been a long time coming. Listen, I've gotten beaten up in the comment section for my well-known discrimination against Triskelion and all things Amy Weber, so we're just going to have it out today. Like, that's the thing. Unfortunately, Adam can't be here, but we do have a special guest in Ward, a.k.a. King Honky, and Dad Squatch in the forums, depending on how Discus is feeling that day. So, Ward, you've been a long-time listener, man. Could you please introduce yourself to the audience in case I don't know you?
Sure. My name is Ward Donovan, like Mark said. King Honky and Dad Squatch, because Discuss doesn't like me very much, so I have to keep changing my name. I have been listening since season 2, I think. I comment on the show all the time, and I was not on the show proper, but Mark was kind enough to have me on the deck builder spot like 2 years ago. So thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
I'm an older player. I've been playing since the Legends and / the Dark. I'm 41, to give you an indication of how sad my life is that I'm still playing Magic. So, I look upon me in despair, for I am your future. I'm from rural era Michigan, so if you put Michigan and look at it, we hold our hand up. I'm right there in the thumb. I like where I live from Michigan. It's the land of opposites. So we have Eminem, but we also have, Insane Clown Posse. So we have Bob Seger, but we also have Kid Rock. We have, I guess, Jack White, but then we have Meg White.
Michigan's a very interesting place,
We're known for cars and music pretty much, but we're the same people that gave you Iggy Pop, but here you go, Mark. We also gave you Betsy DeVos. So. Yeah. If you don't know who that is, just look her up. Anyway, I guess the reason why I'm here is because I'm also, in addition to being a Magic player, I'm a high school art teacher and I'm an artist. I have a degree in painting. It's worth so much of that money. I also have a degree in art education to be a teacher. I've studied illustration, art history. I have a few published pieces here and there, but mostly I do work for myself and my friends. I do some altered Magic cards too, but mostly I just concentrate on stuff for myself. And I think Magic, one of the main reasons I got into Magic was the art. It drew me in. Back, the guy who kind of got me into Magic was in art classes with me in college, and I kind of saw his cards. I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. And so that's when I just started playing, kind of drew me into the hobby. So when I first got in, I saw stuff from, so it was like the Dark and Legends and, Revised. So I saw stuff like Anson Maddox and, Richard Kane Ferguson, Andrew Tucker, and Melissa Benson. And, I just figured, just a big thank you to Commander Cast for having me on. Because what better way to discuss a visual medium than on a podcast? So.
Yes, I know, right? Yes, let us tell you about all these cards you can't see for, I don't know.
Right. Perhaps have your browser open, or...
Yeah. We will do our best to, when you guys see this finally, like in the notes, hopefully you'll be able to look at it too. And, we'll put up some good examples. I'll make sure notes of this one will take a little bit longer, but I want to make sure there's some visual representation to go along with it. Particularly when, we're going to structure this episode a little bit differently just so people know there's not going to be community strategy and technology because, try as I might, I don't know what strategy we would have for an art episode. So,
alternate art that people don't know the card. So it's like,
I can't. Yeah, I mean,
realize you played something really nasty. I don't know.
It's just so instead of trying to bend ourselves backwards for that, we're going to do like an extended community bit today and break it up into different types of artists and Magic art and best. And of course, we're going to shit on some Magic art too because it's Commander Cast. What else would we do? That's definitely coming. So before we get to that, we're going to talk a little bit about like our favorite artists in general, just for some perspective for people, just so they know where we're coming from. This will probably be, just a heads up for the listeners, a 2-part episode. Adam couldn't make it this week, but as anyone who's ever listened to the show knows, like Adam definitely wanted to be here and just couldn't make it happen. So we're probably going to do a second episode, with Adam on as well. So this will be like the first part in our art segment. Because there's just there's 25 years of Magic art to talk about. Just like Ward said, like one of the things that I think anybody in the 90s who was alive, and, able to purchase things in the 90s, can tell you is like, there was something, for lack of a better word, magical, forgive the pun, about the art in that. Like, it really did draw you in. And looking at art from other, collectible card games and just like card games in general, across time, like there really is something special about it. Like, it doesn't always hit, there are definitely, for every, for every beautiful cave people, like weird Drew Tucker art you get, like there's also like a drop of honey, which doesn't, like it, yeah. There's a Hunding Yornerson, so sure. But there really is, like, together, like, it's a cool thing that kind of draws you into it. So that's why we want to spend time doing this, and we're super happy that Ward was able to take some time out today. Especially we're recording on New Year's Eve, so, like, I'm super happy that we was able to get anybody for this. But especially Ward, because we've been trying to get him back ever since that last Deck Builder Spotlight, man. Which is like 2 years ago now? I feel like it was forever. That's another show I would love to get back to doing with the time I don't have.
Right.
But, whatever. Maybe I just don't need to sleep anymore, Ward. Maybe that's the magic powder there. I mean, there's that one
like
kid.
Edison.
Yeah.
I only slept for 15 minutes every hour. And...
Random side note, because it's Commander Cast and we can do that. They did a follow-up recently, like back in the 50s, I think, or 60s, there was a kid who went 11 days without sleep. Like, he did the world record. And they've since removed that because they don't want people to do this again. And now that guy, it's almost like sleep karma. Like, now he's a horrible insomniac. And, like, he just can't get a full night's sleep anymore. Like, it's totally, like, just messed his rhythm up. And that was from, like, 40 years ago. So.
Wow.
I mean, going 11 days without sleep sounds like the literal definition of a waking nightmare to me. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I've done, like, 1 or 2 nights, against my will before. And even, like, after the first night, like, that sounds like, like you're hallucinating, you're weird, whatever. So that sounds like a perfect avenue for me to get back into doing Deck Builder Spotlight. Might as well. But before we get too far off on this, folks, keep up with the conversation on Facebook and Twitter. You are CommanderCast listeners. I know you have ideas and thoughts about art, because if there's one thing that everybody wants to chime in on in the comment section, it's definitely art. So stick with us. This is going to be an extended community segment this week. We're going to start off when we come back from the break with favorite artists. So stick around. I am gonna definitely need you to pronounce yeah.
Zadislav.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what? Here, I'm gonna share the show notes that I'm working on. I took the notes that Adam had drawn up, and I just put it into our regular old show notes. So, in case you want to / follow along or make some edits or whatnot as we go. You don't have to. It's fine as it is, but...
Okay. I'll just open it.
Yeah. Alright, folks. In community this week, just like we said, this is going to be a big art episode, so we're going to do away with the traditional community strategy technology. Focus mostly just on community this week, because there's not any real strategy or technology to talk about here. Although I would really like to see, like those theme decks come back. Like when GU Doug did like the shirtless men deck. Like that's a cool thing. I don't think that's technology that we can recommend to people.
I had a friend who did a deck where it was every single creature had its mouth open, was like either yelling or screaming. And awesome. He would sing Led Zeppelin, the Immigrant Song every time he played it.
That's amazing. That's super amazing. There we go. I'm glad that we're closing out 2017 with that, because 2017, if anyone hasn't seen Thor Ragnarok, best use of the Immigrant Song, I think, ever. Just throwing that out there, people. But anyway, rolling back into artists, not musical artists, but favorite artists in general. Ward, a lot of this, we talked about this before the show. Man, I do feel bad about this, because I feel like I lack the vocabulary and knowledge to really talk about specifically why I like a piece of art. Like, I'm gonna have to lean back on that old Supreme Court definition of pornography. Like, good art is, I know it when I see it. I don't, in a weird way, like, I know I could probably talk intelligently about film and break down, like, shots and lighting and that sort of thing, but I don't have the same, way to describe the composition of a work of art that I really like. So I'm just going to apologize for that ahead of time. So you're going to have to do the heavy lifting there. But in general, before we get into magic art, like, what are some of, your favorite artists just in general? So listeners can kind of get an idea of where you're coming from and the types of, aesthetics that you appreciate.
Yeah, just, kind of going historically, I think one of the first artists that I just kind of saw, the art going through, because I had to take a lot of art history classes and a lot of art classes and things like that. And one of the ones that I saw that just really, really captured me was Francisco Goya. He was a Spanish painter during the 18th and 19th century. And he was actually a royal painter. He painted for Charles IV. He was working for the king. But the thing that I saw, and it's probably because of where I was in my life at that point. I was going through, I guess, a really dark period because he went through something called his Black Period, where he did 14 paintings, and he did it in this house. He was slowly kind of going deaf, and he was upset with the political climate, and he was doing all these really dark paintings. And, he did like things of like people being murdered, and he did Witches' Coven. He did the 2nd and 3rd of May about the invasion of the French, invasion by the French into Spain, people being killed. Wow. But the one that really struck me was Saturn. And I'm sure you can look up Goya and Saturn, and you'll see it, and you'll probably recognize it. You've probably seen it before, but it's just like this giant figure that's bitten the head off of another figure, a smaller figure. And it's supposed to be Saturn devouring its child. Time devouring its child, but the way he did it, it's just very disturbing. And so, it was also a magic reference. It's actually the inspiration. If you look at the card, Sire of Insanity from Ravnica, that demon that's holding somebody and just is holding him in the same pose. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, I like Goya. Alphonse Mucha. You can call him Mucha or Mucha, but it's Mucha. He was a Czechoslovakian, a Slavic artist. And again, I'm not gonna, post links right now, but if you can obviously go on to Google and look up these names and find Google images. But he did a lot of advertisements, and he was basically part of Art Nouveau, which has a lot of it was influenced by a lot of Japanese prints. So the Art Nouveau movement has very strong lines, but it's curved lines. And a lot of his stuff was used for advertisements, and he really wanted to get away from that because he felt he was more of a spiritual kind of guy than that. He also painted something called, if you get a chance, called the Slav Epic, and it's a series of paintings about the Slavic people. And that's one of the things that once I saw his work, and then I saw the Slav Epic, some of it looks like it's straight out of Ravnica, and which is kind of interesting because the Ravnica set was inspired by cities like Budapest and things like that. But also when Czechoslovakia became a country, they got him to create their money and like a postage stamp too. So he actually did the original money for Czechoslovakia back when it was a country, no longer separated again. Let's see. Arthur Rackham. Arthur Rackham was a British illustrator. He, when you think of like fairy tales, like good old fashioned fairy tales, Alice in Wonderland, Gulliver's Travels, Aesop's Fables, he did a lot of those. So if you like look at some of his artwork, you can kind of see it, and you can very much see the classic fairy tale feel. He did watercolor with pen. So if you look at who I'm going to talk about, we're going to talk about Rebecca Guay and Tony DiTerlizzi. If you look at their artwork in Magic and other places, there's a heavy influence by Arthur Rackham. He was really known for doing fairies. So if you want to like see like classical Victorian or 1890 World War I kind of fairy tale art, that would be his stuff.
Oh yeah, I can totally, as you're doing this, I'm trying to go back through and put some links, in there, to some of the works that you mentioned, like Saturn Devouring Sun, the Slav Epic, etc. And I mean, I've never seen any of this stuff.
Okay.
But now, like looking at it, I can immediately see, like I look at, Alphonse Mucha, and I'm like, oh, that's immediately like oh god. Like Fable of Wolf and Owl, like some of that stuff pops up at me, or some of the work that like Descendants Path, etc. And you're like, oh, yeah,
definitely Therese Nielsen, because she does that Art Nouveau kind of decoration. It's a lot of the decoration in the background and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. Like that's why I'm so glad you're on here, because otherwise it would be like me saying, "Oh, do you remember that comic book art from the '80s?" was like, I really liked it. It had
I
like
would
colors.
remember it because I was a comic book geek back in the 80s. Right?
Yeah, but like this is so cool. Like this is the type of stuff I was hoping we would get into. So again, like I'm really excited that you're on, board, because you can point back to the influences to the stuff that's not just the pop art that I'm used to. And like, yeah, some of this stuff was used for our like cover illustrations, or it was used for, ads or whatever. But I mean, these guys really have some serious chops, and it's impressive to look back and see, this is stuff that, like, I mean, just speaking for me, like, I'm gonna go check out some of this Alphonse Mucha art and, like, see if there's, like, a nice coffee table book that I can find.
Oh, yeah, there is. Yeah, there's definitely.
Like, this stuff looks amazing. So, I'm sorry, I totally interrupted you with it.
He ended up hating that stuff because it was just basically advertisements for, like, cigarettes and perfume and chocolates and stuff like that. And he wanted to get, that's why, like, the Slav Epic, it's very different, but it's still kind of his style, but he kind of wanted to get away from that. He felt he was, like, he felt he was like he wanted to paint the spirit. So if you look at the Slav Epic, it's very kind of a spiritual sort of journey.
Yeah, it almost looks like two different artists.
But I still love both the styles, so that's kind of the cool part.
Yeah, it is very neat. Anyway, I'm sorry, you were talking about Arthur Rackham. I totally interrupted.
Yeah. The next couple of ones are pretty much modern artists. I mean, I have lots and lots and lots of influences. There's tons of paintings, like, that I can go through and list, but those are particular artists that I really just saw their stuff, and depending on where I was in life, I have a style, but my taste changed. Just like any functioning adult, your taste should probably change as you get older, just a little bit. Maybe you should start to adopt some things that are a little bit different. You shouldn't like Rob Liefeld when you're 40.
Full stop? Can you just stop that sentence right after Liefeld?
You shouldn't like Rob Liefeld. And his balloon chest and
tiny feet.
Tiny feet, yeah. And lots of packets for holding things.
So many I mean, I don't know what that is. Like, that has crossed over into video games and a bunch of other, like, Final Fantasy art, and like, you can see that everywhere. Like, who the fuck needs the Chewbacca bandolier on every single outfit they have? How many things do you need to put in there? I just don't get it.
Just office supplies.
Yeah.
I was gonna say with Arthur Rackham, the guy who created Vampire Hunter D and who did artwork for Final Fantasy, Yoshitaka Amano.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at his stuff is like, you can see that fairy tale, that kind of same look to it also.
Huh.
So I forgot to put Yoshitaka Amano, or how I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation, but yeah, you could probably look at his stuff and look up, like I said, Vampire Hunter D, if you know the anime or the manga, whatever. And and he did a lot of the illustrations for Final Fantasy, like 1, 2, 3, and whatever versions they are in Japan and versus the American one. The next one I was going to talk about, I guess, would be Kehinde Wiley. He's a modern artist. He's an African American artist. He paints portraits of modern day Black youth and African Americans. But he takes the poses and he puts them in historical poses used in, like, Europe during, like, the mid-century, like 17, 18, 1900s. And like a lot of the decoration and even some of the colors and, like, gold leaf and things like that, he uses the same thing. But I'm actually lucky enough, even though I live, like, in a rural part of Michigan, I'm still only about an hour and a half from Detroit. And the DIA, the Detroit Institute of Arts, is probably, I would put it as one of the best art museums in the country. It really is. Despite all that you hear, the negative stuff you hear about Detroit and Flint and all that things like that, there really is some great culture. And there is a Kehinde Wiley. He paints, like, much larger than life. It's probably like a 12-foot tall portrait, and they put him in classical frames. But it'll be like the pose of Napoleon on a horse, like a general's pose of rearing up in battle, and he's carrying a sword, but the guy in the picture is wearing, like, Timberland boots, and he's wearing, like, saggy jeans, and he's wearing gold chain, but he's, like, dressed as, like, a modern, cause Kehinde Wiley, I think he paints out of Harlem and other places, and he's just people he sees, and he puts them into these poses. He puts these women into these classical poses that were meant for nobility, things like that. So he's kind of really turning things on their head. Also, he's going to be painting for the National Portrait Gallery. He has been handpicked to paint Obama's portrait, Barack Obama's portrait, for the National Portrait Gallery. So he definitely has some clout.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little. Audrey Kawasaki, illustrators from the United States. Again, more like the Art Nouveau. I really like Art Nouveau. I also like Art Deco. One of Adam's, I'm not going to spoil it, but one of the Adam's artists is like Art Deco, and I really like one of his choices too. I thought it was kind of a cool pick that he picked this person, but we'll talk about that later. But she paints on wood, and she paints a lot of females, pretty much almost exclusively females. So if you look up her stuff, just be a little careful. Some of it might be a little risque, but it's just really interesting the way she lets the wood grain. She paints on like these primed pieces, or not even primed, like unprimed pieces of wood, and you can kind of see the wood grain through it. It's just kind of really cool. Just like her style, she's got very curved lines. It almost looks like the Big Eyes, Small Mouth kind of thing. The Precious Moments. What was that movie? Tim Burton did it about the lady who painted the big-eyed children. Yeah, it's not coming to me right now. I really should. Bad art teacher. But anyway, it's kind of that, but it's more of like it's classy. It's classier looking than that. So Audrey Kawasaki, modern day functioning artist, one of those people you look at and you're like, oh, she's younger than me, and yet she's so much more talented, and she's done so much more with her career. But not gonna be bitter about that. She's very talented. You should check her out. Sean Tan is an Australian. I believe his family is originally from Singapore, but they settled in Australia. He is a children's book illustrator, but he is right now probably one of my favorite artists. He did, you can probably go to a bookstore and find his stuff in the comic section, but it also would probably be in the children's book section too. He did the book The Arrival. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Oh yeah.
It's got no words in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's done without words, but it's basically the tale of an immigrant coming to a new country, but it's told completely without words. And that kind of echoes his parents talking about them immigrating to Australia. But also it's done just really, really well. The whole thing is just done really, really well. He's a Hugo Award winner, which means quite a bit as far as illustration. Did Tales from Outer Suburbia, The Lost Thing. He even did an animation for it. He helped with making the movie for it, and just tremendous talent. I have everything he's done, at least that's come out in the United States. So, the fun one, Zdzisław Beskiński. He's a Polish artist. He was basically I guess the best way to classify him is surrealist. But if you know who H.R. Giger is, kind of like that, where it's a lot of biological and mechanical stuff mixed together, but it's straight up crazy pants nightmare fuel. It is just messed up stuff. If you know the Garden of Earthly Delights, the Hieronymus Bosch, it's very similar. A lot of his stuff is very similar to that, like the demons and stuff you see. It's like he's definitely drawn some inspiration from that, or he did. He passed away a couple years ago, but I'll have to find the picture, but there is one of his pictures, and you can see the exact inspiration for Dune Brewed Nephilim, the one with the big mouth open and all the sand people coming out of his mouth. You can look. There's one that's almost taken directly from Beskiński's artwork. So I thought that was kind of a nice thing. But his stuff is just very nightmarish, because he kind of grew up in communist Poland, and just very interesting stuff. And I guess the last one, I had to put in a comic book artist. I used to be a comic book guy, not the comic book guy.
For which we were all thankful.
Podcast ever. Yeah. No, but Eric Powell, he did a comic book, or he does a comic book called The Goon, and also The Hillbilly. And his style is just really great. I ran into The Goon years ago. Even after I stopped collecting comics, I still went out and bought The Goon, and it's just really interesting. He's a multiple Eisner Award winner, so if you're a comic book dude and you know what the Eisner Awards are, you probably should. He's won multiple for it. He's the Goon is basically the best way I can describe it. It's kind of like a Tom Waits song come to life. It's just low down characters. There's a hobo jungle. But there's all sorts of weird things. There's a a giant lizard that talks like a Mexican wrestler and a luchador, and it's just craziness. But his style, his artwork's really cool because he he doesn't stick to one medium. He does a lot of mixed media stuff. So he'll do pencil on top of flat paint with ink, and he'll do painting next to charcoal, and it's just really, really kind of cool what he does. And then the hillbilly, as the best way to describe it, is if Conan existed in Appalachia. So that's really what it is. It's like Conan. It's like that. Those kind of like, this guy has basically this gigantic butcher cleaver that he kills supernatural creatures with. That's what it really is. So if you get a chance to pick up the Goon or the Hillbilly, they're great stuff. So those are some of the ones off the top of my head. Like I said, I could probably have a bunch of them, but that's the ones that come to me.
I mean, it's funny, as much of a comic book guy as I am, like I think I've probably heard of the Goon before. Mm-hmm. I've never read any of his stuff, but the art it feels like it's drawing from a bunch of different, it looks like Bone on steroids, or maybe Bone on an acid trip, Like, okay. I get a little bit, like that old influence, but, I mean, again, this is my vocabulary, it's failing me, but, the shading, the lighting, the texture of his drawings is so much more realized than that old stuff. It's not more 3D, like you can't say, but I feel like there's more depth to, like, if you put more depth into like an old comic booky type art, like that's where I feel like the Goon is.
You can see Will Eisner. I mean, you can see direct influences from Will Eisner and his stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
His partner Jimmy if you look at his partner Jimmy, I don't know if you see him, he's got eyes like Little Orphan Annie. He's got blank eyes on purpose that look like Little Orphan. So it's kind of placing it. They never really say when it is, but I mean, they kind of place it Depression era, kind of 20s and 30s. They were going to make a movie of it. They made a short still of it. David Fincher, the guy that directed Seven and a bunch of other movies, was going to direct it. They were actually going to have an animated film, but that kind of never panned out. But
well, I mean, looking at some of the other Eisner things that did make it to film, I'm like,
well, the spirit, yeah, I don't, we're not going to talk about that. But.
Maybe we kind of dodged the bullet with that.
No, well, he's Eisner influence. He's not, it's not Eisner.
True. I don't know. I feel like
his style is very pulpy, so it's like pulp comics from the 20s and 30s. So that's the easy way to describe it.
It is very cool. Like I said, now I feel like I need to go out and get a bunch of different coffee table books. Just looking at this stuff. But very, very cool. Adam has a bunch on here we're going to talk about when Adam comes back. My list is very short.
That's okay.
Because I don't have the depth that you do. Like, I'll talk about some of the things that I like. Again, like, this is just me being like, I don't know, I kind of like it because I like it. It's like, it looks pretty.
That's okay. That's the whole thing. I can, I can wax about media and stuff like that, but, I mean, technically it's subjective, so you can just like what you like. It's okay.
Yeah, and I'm not apologizing for, like, liking pulpy crap. I shouldn't say pulpy crap. I mean, the stuff, like, I'll start off my list, like, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Like, fantasy begins and ends mostly with Lord of the Rings for me. In fact, like, I have this joke, like, amongst my friends, like, a bunch of my friends are really into fantasy. Because, I mean, I'm a nerd. I teach English, so we talk about a bunch of stuff. And I teach more, like, the pulpy side of English anyway. So I do like a course called Heroes and Monsters. So it's just obviously a lot of fantasy, sci-fi, whatever. And so much of my friends are into that, but I'm like, look guys, like, unless a fantasy author has 2 R's in his middle name, like, I really don't care about it. Like, that's the sad part, but it's also kind of true. Like, I don't get there unless it's, Tolkien or Martin. But John Howe is one of my favorite artists. Just because of how well realized a lot of his stuff is. Like, there's a very famous, portrait he did of, Gandalf just walking down the road. They actually put on an old, British copy of, Lord of the Rings when they re-released it before the movies came out. And he did a lot of concept work for the movies as well, but there's like a lot of great stuff of, like photos of, or not photos, like portraits of the towers or, Gandalf riding through the Pelennor Fields. Battle of the Pelennor Fields is one of the best ones I think he did. Like, a lot of cool, just like, it's hard to describe because I wouldn't say it's, like, the dimensions of his figures aren't necessarily accurate, but I think that kind of makes it truer to the spirit. Like, when you look at the orcs, there's a portrait he did of Mordor, and you look at the orcs and the goblins that he drew. None of that stuff is proportionally really correct, but it feels correct for the story, Like the famous one that I really like is Eowyn and the Nazgul. And I'm not gonna say it's like the most amazing, portrait of two fantasy characters fighting ever, but like that's the portrait I have in my head when I read that chapter in The Return of the King. Like when I think of Orthanc, in The Two Towers, like I think of John Howe's illustration of that tower, And it was funny because I had read the books before I came to his artwork, and when I saw the artwork, I'm like, yes, like that's the picture in my head that I get. So I don't know, like when I read Boromir's Last Stand and I see it, I'm like, yep, that's what's in my head. So it's an amazing, I guess, ability to put words into print or into paper, like to put an imagination on the page or on the canvas that I really appreciate.
Yeah. He really tells the story. When you first put it in the notes, when I looked at it, I'm like, I didn't recognize the name right away. But now that I see it, I recognize that stuff, especially when you said she's fighting the Nazgul. I recognize that picture. And then the same one with, Gandalf walking. I recognize these pictures. I've seen them. They're in my head.
Yeah.
I can kind of, it reminds me of Michael Whalen. It's Whelan. He's a big time fantasy artist. He's done a lot. He did, I don't know if he ever did Tolkien, but he did like Michael Moorcock's stuff. He did.
I'm definitely familiar. I've definitely seen his stuff before. Yeah.
Yeah. He's done album. He even did a Meatloaf album cover. So, he was.
Oh, well, there you go.
He was bigger in the 70s and 80s, but like, he's back in the time of like Boris Vallejo and all those guys. But, no, I really like, I do like this art. This is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying about like the figurative stuff. Like I see like some of the wizards, like the pictures he did of like the different wizards, like Radagast and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I can just, it's fairy tale, but it's also, he just really, sets the scene for you. He does make it cinematic. What are your, speaking of Tolkien and like the 70s and 80s and stuff like that, two things. What are your thoughts on, the Hildebrandt brothers and their Tolkien? Do you ever look at their stuff?
Absolutely. It's funny because I knew this was going to come up because obviously, like the Hildebrandts did a bunch of art for Magic too. Right. And this is very specific, but the Hildebrandt art for Lord of the Rings was some of my dad's favorite art. Like my dad was a huge Lord of the Rings fan. That's where I get it from. He used to read the books like every year. That's where I get it from. So there's like a family connection there too. And he had this calendar, literally from 1977. Because I would always ask him, I'm
looking at it right now online. Okay,
yeah, like there's this calendar of the Lord of the Rings art from 1977 that was hanging up in my dad's workshop in the basement my entire fucking life, and is probably still there because I don't think my mom took it down after my dad died. So it's still there, and like there are some, like there's an Old Man Willow portrait that he did, which is it is in my head. Like before I even knew what Lord of the Rings was, like I saw these photos, like I would kind of leaf through the calendar. Like when I was down helping my dad, whatever, my dad was doing something in the basement, like, I would leaf through the Hildebrandt brothers calendar for it, and like look at some of these images, and I'm not always a huge fan of their portrait work or their people that the Hildebrandt brothers do. Like there's some magic art that I like. I like Shunt, and I like, a couple of the other cards that they do out of Mirrodin block. But I'm not always a fan of the Hildebrandt brothers. But man, like, there are certain times when I think they really get it right. And like that Old Man Willow one, some of their other like there was one, I think I can see the photo in my mind, but I can't remember if I think it might be Rohan, that they did a portrait of in that calendar too. And like, it's still to this day, like it's stuck in my head as like, that's what Rohan looks like. And I think they captured it in the film too, so that's where like it kind of rang true. As much as any fantasy, totally imaginary thing can ring true to you, like that's what I think of when I think it. So there are parts of the Hildebrandts that I like. I think their work, whenever people get involved in one of those characters in there, like I think it gets a little too cartoony. Like their faces in particular are a little bit too, I don't know, bulbous. Most of the time, particularly with their Lord of the Rings art. Don't ask me why, like, I think the dwarves are too bulbous. Like, the bulbous is probably an adjective that would be accurate to apply to, like, Lord of the Rings dwarves, right? But, yeah, I don't know. Like, something is a little off with their character work, but man, like, their portrait work in their whenever they're doing hillsides or like fantasy, like the Old Man Willow stuff, like, that really rings true to me. I like that quite a bit.
what I'm noticing, I mean, obviously because it's a story, but I see the old man Will Eyes. That's a pretty cool picture. But what I'm really noticing that I've never really noticed before is that they really make it look like scenery. It looks like a play almost, like backdrop scenery. Like they really make it almost look like they're stepping into a play as for parts of it where they're setting up scenes.
Yeah.
That's like one of the things I'm noticing. Like and that's something I don't think I really appreciate, because on Magic cards you really don't have time for the scenery. I don't know if they've done any land, and maybe they have. I haven't checked it out, but I mean, it's one of the things I'm just noticing. Just everything looks very, very purposely set up like a scene from a play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I think I mean when I talk about the Hildebrand brothers in general. Like I do like there's so much going on. There's so much texture. Their work with color, particularly like, I don't think anyone does an autumn scene quite as well, at least in Lord of the Rings art anyway, as the Hildebrand brothers. Like there's a warmth to the colors that they use.
Yeah, that's a definite thing. That just kind of stepping back from the amount of Google images, you can just see like their color palette is a lot of warm colors. So.
And they do that in their Magic art to a certain extent too. Not as frequently, but you can kind of see that. Like that's just like you said, the palette that they really like. But and I'm sorry, it's the 1978 Tolkien calendar. My bad, not the 77 Tolkien calendar.
They're both coming up. I see.
Yeah, but yeah, the one I particularly remember, like, man, I can tell you that calendar's still in my parents' basement to this day. And it's funny because I'm sure they must have done other things, but I will forever associate them with that that milieu of Tolkien. But it's definitely worth taking a look at. Like, I don't know, like I really like their Lothlorien. Like that totally that's a thing that pops out to me, and I'm like, okay, yep, that is what it probably looks like. For some reason, like their Tom Bombadil totally strikes it for me, because Tom Bombadil is so weird. Like, this is getting into Tolkien probably more than we need to in this podcast, but like, Tolkien is a thing that no one else even gives a shit about in any of the other.
I don't care about Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, no one cares about Tom Bombadil. It was funny because it was one of my dad's favorite characters, and my dad would always bitch about it. He's like, "Oh, they didn't put in Bombadil again." I'm like, Dad, that is such a fucking weird thing. Like, it's a weird thing even in Tolkien, which is full of weird shit. Like, it's just
he's always singing. I mean,
yeah, it's this one-off, totally doesn't fit. Like, totally, it is completely off. Somehow he's more powerful than the ring. Like, he's somehow more powerful than the most powerful thing in Middle-earth. Yeah. And he's just like, fuck it, I'd just lose it anyway. You know? Like, when they bring it up to Gandalf, they're like, hey, can we ask this incredibly powerful dude just singing in the woods? He's like, nah, Bombadil wouldn't give a shit. So, I'm like, okay.
The other question I was going to ask about Tolkien is the Ralph Bakshi movies.
I really love both of those. Like, there's the Bakshi movies, there's the other Lord of the Rings one. You know, the one that totally didn't get finished? There's two versions of it. I'd have to pull it up on my own account because I own both. The Bakshi movies are really good. Like that one, I still think is the best version of The Hobbit. I like it better than any of the Hobbit movies. Like, it's nice, concise, like it pulls, like The Hobbit is much more of a fairy tale than Lord of the Rings are. Like, Lord of the Rings is an epic, you know, in the same way that, some of the old Icelandic sagas or, Beowulf is an epic, you know? Like, you go on a tale. Like, the Hobbit is just a fairy tale. And so, like, that art for that, I think, fits much better than it does for the Lord of the Rings. But then again, there is, oh man, what's the other Lord of the Rings movie that I know I have on here? No, my movies, you stupid Amazon list. Yeah, there's the two on here. This makes phenomenal radio, by the way.
I was gonna say, they're gonna start calling this Tolkien talk.
Yeah, in a second. But anyway, like, I like both of those to roll back in. Like, I like both of the ones, that they put on film. It makes sense to me. I don't know, in a weird way. Like, the other one that I'm failing to really grasp, the other animated version, is the one where they had like, they kind of had people standing in, they kind of like animated above, like over people, if you know what I mean.
Rotoscoping.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So they rotoscoped that one. That one totally makes sense for Lord of the Rings. I like that, I think, better for Lord of the Rings than I do the Bakshi art for Return of the King. Even though I like Return of the King, like, I watched that a million times when I was a kid. I will still watch that unabashedly and be like, yeah, it's pretty cool. So, but hey. Yeah.
and that was my bad for that tangent, but that was a good tangent, I think, so.
Hey, this is Commander Cast, man.
Listeners, you don't like it, I mean, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this one, of all the times, like, we're just unabashedly gonna go talk about some weird tangents here. Cause it's an episode devoted
to... it's coming.
Yeah. Like, it's an episode devoted to art anyway. If you're down with a podcast talking about art, like, you're already in for a penny, in for a pound. So.
Right.
I don't know.
If you want to talk about, the new Dominiara set, I guess wait till next week or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, so, let's see. What's the next one on my list? I really like, old Japanese woodblock printing. Like, there's something really magical about that to me. In a weird, like, I can't even say weird. It's not weird. It's a terrible adjective to use for this. It is unearthly in a strange way to me. Like, the representations of people and of, like, kami and spirits and, like, ogres and demons, like, is so influential in other areas. Like, I'm a huge video game nerd on top of it. And, like, I can see...
Okami.
Yes, exactly. So, like, I mean, and Okami is amazing, right? But there's a lot of other ones that show up. Like, there's one that came out this year that I spent, I don't know, probably 150 hours on. Like, Neo, is like a Dark Souls-like, that also draws heavily from, Japanese mythology. It takes place, in fact, in the year 1600 in Japan, like right when the Tokugawa succession was coming up. And, they have like giant heads in wheels. They'll have those old, like, woodblock printings kind of like brought to life almost. And it's so, like, I don't know, like, there's something about that too. And again, like, there's the other artwork that my dad used to have, because my dad was stationed in the Philippines when I was a kid, and he collected a bunch of Asian art when he was over there. He had the other calendar he had right next to the Hildebrandt one, as a matter of fact, was a bunch of woodblock printing. I feel like I'm talking through my childhood on this fucking podcast, by the way. It looks like
tell me more about your
I know, right? But like that, and it always fascinated me, right? Because it's so simple. Like, a lot of woodblock printing, aside from, like, the Great Wave off of Tanagawa, which is one of my favorite photos. Everyone likes that one. Like, that's that doesn't make me fucking special just because I like that. But, like, a lot of the old woodblock printing, like, a lot of the canvas is just blank, and then you'll get that very fine lines. Those very fine lines of demarcating color, or just sometimes it's just the lines in general, like the foliage work they have, or some of the, the bamboos or the landscape is so simple, but so evocative, I think. And I don't know, you can probably talk about it more, Ward, but,
I was just going to talk about the influence. I mean, when those woodblocks came to Europe, like, just the influence they had upon, like, the Art Nouveau artists, and even stuff like Van Gogh, like, even like the things that the colors they saw, the blues and the just like the greens and stuff like that. But also I think that's as far as the woodblock prints, and even some of the sumi-e, the ink paintings, where they just use like ink.
Yeah.
It's basically just like the ink, brush and ink. I think I'm sure there's something I'm probably going to, massacre, but there's something zen about it, where it's not just it is about decoration, but it also is about the simplicity of it, and like the efficiency and simplicity of it. So. Yeah.
And I mean, I think this is where you're going to really have to help me out too, but there is, that transition that in Europe to, like, shading and trying to make things more realistic or more, realistically proportioned. Didn't seem like it translated over in woodblock printing. Maybe on the eastern side, maybe because Japan was so isolated for so many years and specifically, expelled any kind of foreign influence. But it kind of honed in that 2D, very simplistic, drawing. And I should say simplistic, like, it's just minimalist, I think is a better word for it.
They didn't do the chiaroscuro shading and, all the, they kind of, like you said, they were so isolated, so they kind of kept to their own.
Yeah, and like I can so appreciate that, like, on a number of different levels, like minimalist influences or minimalist art. Like, minimalism is one of my favorite, actually some of my favorite just musical artists too, like a Stephen Reich or a Terry Riley. Like a very simple tone or very simple melody, like repeated and slightly variated upon. There's something kind of haunting to that. I don't know, like it's haunting and hypnotic at the same way. It's hard to express obviously in an audio medium. But it's something I really appreciate. Yeah. Like there's something I'm kind of drawn to, and I'm even drawn to this in other works too. And I think it's funny because I wouldn't call it minimalist, but I think that the fine lines, I think, is something that transfers over into my love of comic books. Cause moving on to my other influences like Mobius, Barry Windsor-Smith, Mike Allred, for a modern example, like Mobius and Barry Windsor-Smith in particular, like I'm so, like those guys can do anything. And I will read that work, like the Mobius run on Silver Surfer is like an old 2-issue print, like back in, mid 80s, I want to say.
I can picture the face of Galactus, yeah.
Exactly, right? There's something about those lines, like it's so finely done, but there's like the amount of detail that they put in. Barry Windsor-Smith too does amazing line work. A lot of his old work, like he did this couple issues on the old X-Men, that some of the old, anyone's an X-Men fan, like some of the old Forge first appearances. And then he also did a run on Valiant back in the day, which I really love. And one of the things that really makes me hate the digital revolution is because I'm a cranky old man, and like like some of the I'm most cranky about some of the stuff that didn't make the jump because of rights. Like Barry Windsor-Smith art on some of the original Solar Man of the Atom Valiant run is some of my favorite comic book art. Like it's so crazy and evocative, and like particularly like the first few issues when you can watch a man like walking through a nuclear reactor and slowly disintegrating. Like I don't know, it's haunting. Like I can see that stuff now, and that stuff, because of rights, is probably never going to make the jump. It's very difficult to find nowadays unless you track it down at like a comic book convention. Like I'm the dumbass who still goes to New York Comic Con hoping to pull out like old Valiant issues, so I can complete some Barry Windsor-Smith art collection that I have, like I'm that fucking one guy, but it's, I don't know, there's something about that it really just resonates to me. Like it draws my eye particularly. Like they know exactly where, like how to get the readers to follow the action on a page that I really appreciate. It's something, especially like the old work he did on X-Men too, and in Marvel in general. And Barry Windsor-Smith is a very, prolific artist. Like he did a whole bunch of stuff. And just kind of the way he does. And again, his faces aren't necessarily, I wouldn't say they're very proportional. They're like a very Barry Windsor-Smith art. Like I think kind of all the...
You can definitely tell his faces. Everybody's got like kind of like this Aquaman. They kind of have like this Roman nose kind of thing going on.
Yeah, they all kind of look the same, which a lot of artists are kind of like that, like all Rob Liefeld feet are all super tiny and deformed.
Let's just let Rob Liefeld die, or Liefeld.
No, I think you're right. I think it's Liefeld.
He's honestly, right. He's riding that Deadpool money all the way.
Yeah, I mean, hey man, I read his run on New Mutants back in the day, and I kind of liked it, but I think maybe I was bowled over more by the Chris Claremont story than I was by the Rob Liefeld art, but whatever, it's fine.
I was going to say for Barry Windsor-Smith, I think I remember him most from like Weapon X and then also Conan.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good thing you brought up Conan too, because he's my favorite Conan illustrator, and I'm a huge Conan fan.
Bernie Wrightson is probably my favorite Conan illustrator, but
yeah, like
old horror comic books, but yeah, also Bernie Wrightson. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of his stuff, I'm sure. I mean, he's not. I don't think Barry Windsor-Smith is still alive, but I mean, the guy's in his upper 60s by now. He's not doing as much work as he used to. But my cousin used to be a huge Conan fan, and my cousin's about like 10 years older than me, roughly. And so he had a bunch of the Conan stuff, like the early 70s Marvel Conan stuff that Barry did. And man, that stuff is just amazing. Like like you look at it now, and I still don't think there's anyone really who captured it quite as well as Barry did. Like it has this otherworldly quality that really works for Conan. I don't know. And moving on to more current artists, there's a run, particularly the newest run of Silver Surfer, going back to Mobius, I suppose, is Mike Allred. Mike Allred used to do, I think it was Madman, was his, it was his first, I don't know if his first one, but he's big, his big jumping off point. Like I think that's what he's most known for. But he does, or he did the last two starting in 2015 run of Silver Surfer, and it's amazing. I mean, the the story of that is like one of the most fun Silver Surfer stories I've seen in a long time anyway, but like there's so much stuff on the page, and like it all kind of comes together in this cool little montage of like little things in the background, little stuff in the foreground, like this vibrant art. Like, again, like my vocabulary is lacking on this, but I can't stress enough how much I just enjoyed just looking at that stuff, you know? Mm. And there's something to just being drawn in by the page itself that I really appreciate. I wish I had better influences than just comic books and old Tolkien art to draw from here, but that's where I'm at.
Well, I mean, he's got a very pop art style.
Yes.
Yeah. That's one of the things I've kind of noticed. I think you would really like, do you know who Charles Burns is?
No, I don't think so.
He's a comic artist. He did something called Black Hole. He's got a lot of stuff, but if you look at, I think you'd like Charles Burns. I think one of the things I'm like noticing about your things you like clean lines. That's what you
yes.
like.
Yeah.
You like clean lines and just very defining lines, almost like it's just everything is like a continuous, not like continuous line, but you like the contours, and clean lines. That's kind of what I'm noticing. And if you like the woodblock printing and Barry Windsor Smith stuff, it kind of looks like you like ink along with watercolor. So it's like very simple.
Yep, and that's why I like the Rebecca Guay really gets me in a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah, again, I like that too. I mean, if you look at Arthur Rackham, he was doing ink and watercolor. So, but it's all like these contour lines that define everything. So I guess we kind of found a middle ground to appreciate stuff from.
Yeah. So that's our long-winded intro to art influences in general. By the way, we also talk about magic cards on this.
It's true. Podcast. We do talk about magic cards.
Yeah. So let's take just a little break now, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about our favorite MTG blocks for art. Are the things the blocks or the sets that we thought really just knocked it out of the park. So stick with us. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not going to change worst art. Like, that's still, like, Balduvian Warmakers, that's some fucking worst art. That's staying. But, yeah.
I actually have to look that up. I'm trying to remember what the card is.
So fucking bad.
I think it's one guy's looking at the camera, looking at the picture.
There's like 3 guys, and one of them, I swear to God, is like Quato from, from Total Recall. Okay. It's like, what body part are you coming out of? Like, he's like growing out of the dude's shoulders. Like, what the fuck is going on with that? It's like, it's a failure on so many levels. Like, and the card is shit too. So, just, oy.
Yeah, it doesn't help. That was one of the things I mean, if we had like forever and a day to talk about stuff, I was like, great, good cards with terrible art and vice versa. Cards with great art and that are just absolute crap. So.
Yeah. It's so fucking bad. Alrighty, folks. We are back from the break, and again, we're not doing a strategy technology segment this week because that would just be a fool's errand. So we're going to talk about our favorite Magic the Gathering blocks for art, and we're going to start with Ward. So Ward, if you had to pick one amongst the myriad planes of Magic and the myriad blocks that we've had over the last 25 years, which would be your favorite?
I think the one that just, when I first started looking at it, when I first saw like just the preview images, it didn't even have the card images. It was just kind of like the Lorwyn Shadowmoor block, so Lorwyn Morningtide, Shadowmoor Eventide. And you can probably tell that by some of the influences I gained from the Art Nouveau and then like sort of the fairy tales and the illustration, the actual like children's book illustration. That's just some of the stuff I like. I really like that set. I really like what they did with it. It very much nailed down, and we were talking about this before we started, about that Celtic, Gaelic, British Isles fairy tale look to it. I mean, there's the giants, there's the elves, there's even the Kithkin that they kind of sort of invented. They're not quite hobbits, they're not quite dwarves. They just they developed a very distinct look, even in both parts, Lorwyn and then Shadowmoor, like when it changed from like forever day to forever night kind of thing. They just really nailed down the look of it. And it goes from like this happy, bright, everything's kind of, the worst that's going to happen is maybe you get hit in the head by a fish brick. I love that. I love that artwork. We just call it fish brick. I can't remember the name of it. Noggin whack. That's the name of it.
That's the best art for it, though, right? Like, you're like, dude got whacked in the noggin.
Tied a brick to a fish and hitting somebody in the head with that. Like, that's the worst that's going to happen to you,
Mm-hmm.
But then you go to Shadowmoor and everything's like it's that creepy dark side. It's that, it's that Russian fairy tale. It's that German fairy tale where like bad things happen to you and everything is kind of dangerous. So I just think they really nailed the look of that down. Everything from like I said, the giants and the menhirs and the dolmens and everything like that. I just thought it was really cool. So.
Yeah, man. I mean, give me some weird merfolk with fins on their heads and elves with crazy spiral horns and more of that, please. I mean, even to a lesser extent, like the weird noggins and boggins and what are the puka?
Yeah.
The weird fucking horse things, like, and yeah, man, like Puka's
donkey people.
Yeah, I'm down with some donkey people, and like Puka's Mischief, just the card, like what the fuck? Like I know this, I'm totally plagiarizing, Andy from back in the day. But there's a fucking llama smoking a pipe in that one, man. Like, fuck yes, give me more of that. Like, that is what I need in my life,
That's what you need llama smoking pipes and you need skeletons riding turtles.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's what you need in artwork.
Like, yeah.
That's Amy Weber, though. That's another thing.
Yeah. I mean, you called out Cemetery Puka. Like, I love, Cemetery Puka is so fucking cool. Like, I know,
that's, like I said, listed was one of my favorite cards from that block. So,
yeah.
I mean, as far as artwork, too.
It's just, it's so crazy evocative, like that weird, like, disintegrating, like, haunting atmosphere they have, and that, every part of that card, like, I just love looking at that card. I want to play that card just because of the art. It's not like, it is not a good card, but I have put it in decks, sometimes just because I like looking at it on the board. So,
I love, like, when I first saw that artwork, I thought it was like Rebecca Guay, and I'm like, nope, it's Omar Ryan. And I kind of looked at his stuff. Wow, I really like that. I mean, I even like his basic land that he did. He like some of the basic land, especially for like the Shadowmoor, that side. It reminds me of like living in Michigan in the spring, where everything's like mud and weeds, and it's always dark and gray, and it kind of reminds me of.
Yeah. So, why don't we just go through, we don't have to hit every single one. I mean, I put way too many fucking cards, and so did Adam on our list. So, and I'm probably not going to put even all of these in the show notes, because it's just ridiculous. Like, I just called out the ones I really like. So, feel free to call out whichever ones you want to talk about, and then we'll kind of gush about some magic art.
I'll just try and hit them all really quickly. Blowfly Infestation was one of the first ones I put. It's Drew Tucker. I think is it a dead pig? I can't even tell. Some dead animal. It's just icky. It's just gross, but it's also Drew Tucker, but it's like it's Drew Tucker, but a little more defined, because after Time Spiral Block, they brought back a lot of the old artists, him and Quentin Hoover and Mark Poole, and some of the older artists, and even Anson Maddox. And they brought them back to kind of just show them, like, here's your old cards that we're redoing. Here's your old artists that you like that were, with new images. So I just thought this was kind of cool, because I think the Shadowmoor block was one of the last times that Drew Tucker did artwork along with Richard Kane Ferguson. And I just thought it was just gross looking, because you can just see those flies, and it's just nasty looking. I don't know, it's Drew Tucker, but it's like it's a little more defined. You can tell a little bit more what's going on, and I just thought it was just an icky card.
Yeah,
icky.
That it totally is. Do you like the Blowfly Infestation got a new life with Amonkhet?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. That and the Crumbling Ashes. I remember seeing Crumbling Ashes from that set, and then looking, I'm like, oh, I should probably make that deck. And then I realized, like, Crumbling Ashes was like a $5 card. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
why is this a $5 card? I'm like, oh, because Amonkhet. So
yeah,
-1 counters. The next one I was going to talk about is Brian Stoutarm. I love the character of Brian Stoutarm. I like the idea. I mean, he's basically the giant that throws things. He's a throwback to what do you call it? What's that giant that throws things? Or whatever his name is. You know what I'm talking about.
Who?
Goblins call him Chuck.
Oh. Yeah, I know you're talking about. Of course, falls. For a minute, I thought you were talking about like X-Men and the Fastball Special. I'm like, Colossus?
That too. Yeah, that is very much a Fastball Special. But I just love the artwork for it. Zoltan Boros and Gabor. I can't pronounce this. they came on during Ravnica Block. I'm not even sure if Boros was actually named after Zoltan Boros because that's when he started doing Magic cards, right around then. So, thought maybe it's a red-white card, but I just love the artwork. It's such a glowing kind of golden look to it. I mean, even though he's throwing these poor goblins to their death, it's such a cheerful looking picture. He's got like this Rasta, kind of.
And those eyebrows.
Beard and
check those eyebrows, man.
Yeah, he's got the rockin' eyebrow. I mean, he's a giant, but he looks like he's very much okay. I just realized something. They very much went for when they did Lorwyn Shadowmoor Block. They very much went for a Jim Henson, Brian Froud, Labyrinth Dark Crystal look.
It's true.
So that they look just human enough that you could say that's the parts, but they're definitely like not human. You can say, yeah, that's definitely not a human. I just love the color of it and just everything about it. So
yeah, it is cool. I mean, in addition to just being like an awesome card and a really fun deck.
Oh yeah, he's my general for Boros. So next one up is Cemetery Puka, like we were talking about. That's by Omar Ryan. Hope I'm not mispronouncing that, but just. Yeah, like Mark said, just the disintegrating, the just very evocative mood, the stones alone. Like I really, one of the things I've realized what I like about certain artists, like when we get to like favorite Magic artists, is I am a traditional artist, and I'm just old enough that I missed the kind of the digital revolution for doing art. I just missed it. I was just at the cusp of it, and I kind of missed it. So I actually have a degree in painting, and I went to school for illustration, and we did everything the old-fashioned way because this was early '90s, and it wasn't as prevalent. They didn't have, wherever I was didn't have it, and I can really appreciate artists where I can see it and say, okay, I think I know how they did that, but I'm amazed at how they got there. Whereas I can see the artist's hand. I think that's just the coolest part where I can see where the artist did something. When it gets to digital, not that I'm not impressed by that because I can't do a lot. There's a lot of digital art that I could never do, ever. But the fact that a lot in digital, I can't see how they did it. I can't see how the sausage was made, to paraphrase. So I just really love the fact that you can kind of see just the artist's hand. So Cemetery Puka, I'm not, sometimes it's kind of like at that Drew Tucker thing, like, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but, I think it's cool.
Yeah, like, so it just kind of blends together, like the foreground, the background, like everything kind of blend, like the character of the Puka kind of blends into the landscape. I don't know, it's cool and evocative. Omar Ryan, when you were talking, I was just doing a quick little search. I think he only worked in this block, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
he only did
I
like
don't
6.
know, maybe.
Well, I mean, there's only. I'll put it this way: like this is the extent of my my research here. Is Magic Cards info. There's only 16 cards credited to him.
Okay, then you're probably right.
And it looks like everything here, like some of the basic, I think the coolest art he did was the basic land art. Like he did a really cool, like the islands and whatever. I think he only did like actually Bant colors, like islands, mountains, and forests, or islands, forests, and plains rather. But he also did one of my other favorite ones I forgot to put on my list was Windbrisk Heights. Which I really love that art. Like that seemed again like another Tolkien-esque art to me. That like cliff that looks like a palm with a bunch of forests coming out of it. Mm-hmm. Like very famous evocative. It just got reprinted in Commander 2016. That and Windbrisk Raptor, which is a card that I always want to play, but it's way too fucking overcosted. But I'm like,
yeah, there's just easier ways.
Yeah, there's just way easier ways to give attacking creatures lifelink.
Or lifelink all the time.
Yeah, it is whatever. Yeah, like you don't need a 5/7 bird to do it. But that fucking bird is like, I don't know, 50 times the size of a horse it's about to munch on, and I'm totally down with that. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. What's your next one?
Next one is Dawn-Glow and Fusion. It's Rebecca Guay, so I'm gonna gush over this one. But I just think it's just beautiful, and I rarely use that phrase to describe things. I'm not looking to say, oh, it's beautiful. No, I just think it's absolutely beautiful, and it's not just because of this fawn, this elf satyr fawns, whatever they were in
Sure.
Shadowmoor Lorwyn, yeah. I just think the whole picture, just the glow about it. Again, it's got colors reminiscent of woodblock paintings. It's got colors reminiscent of Van Gogh. It's got colors reminiscent of just like that whole influence. And then I just love it. Again, it's got the clean lines. I think what can be said for our podcast day is we like watercolor.
Yes, we do.
I mean, I like acrylic and stuff too, but I mean,
it's so evocative. Like nothing does skies like watercolor, you know, skies or water or like background scenes. Dongle and Fusion was a close number one for me out of this set. I think Rebecca Guai's Enchanted Evening is the one I go with. But man, I mean, both of them, like, I would want prints of this. Like, I would put Dongle and Fusion, like, up on my wall in my office, you know? Like, it's something you can just keep, I don't know, you can keep looking at and finding different little textures, like even the flowers in the background and how the weird steam, I'm guessing that's steam and not water, coming off of the pencil. Well, sure, whatever, fuck it. Yeah, like it's so good. And I just like the composition of the card itself. And this I think is rare for Magic. So a lot of times you got the art panel and you got the rest of the card, but like, you can tell, not that there isn't green and white in all of it, but right down the middle, like this is one of those split cards, you know, and then the left half really is darker than the right half of the card, and that's the same, like there's green on one half of the card on the left half, and there's white on the other half. So like, I don't know, it works so well, and I doubt that Rebecca Guai was, you know, consulted in the actual color composition of the card. You know, it just kind of happens to go together like that. But Dongle and Fuse are one of those cards, like it works as the whole composition of the card, not just the art itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think very impressive.
The composition is top notch. I mean, just the swirl. Like, there's a circular composition. It just fits. There's actually a circle in the middle. It's just, yeah, it's right in the middle, but like the figure, the arch of the figure's back, along with the Dawn Glow pollen stuff there on the right, it just forms like a circle there. It forms that same arch. It's kind of a mirrored image. So, yeah. Next one is, and again, we discussed this earlier, is Fable of Wolf and Owl. Let's see. Who's that by? Did I put that down there?
Heather Hudson?
There you go. Yeah. I guess, again, the colors. I think it's the color. It's using complementary colors. One of the things I really like about it. So it's using the oranges and browns, and then it's got up at the top. And that's a really kind of cool opposite, because you have the russet colors, the oranges, the browns, the yellows, and then you have the cool green and blue up in the top right. So it's like sky versus ground sort of thing, but also complementary colors on the color wheel if they're opposites. So they really, for people that don't know what complementary colors are, they're the colors that are opposite each other. They like a red and a green. A red will never look more red when it's than when it's against a green. Like if you imagine somebody wearing like purple pants and a yellow shirt, the amount that it clashes, that yellow never looks more yellow than when it's against that purple. So they work well together. So I just that and the line work, and it's just, again, very fairy tale. So I'm kind of liking it, and also how like the feathers are turning into kind of looks like it's turning into the owl's.
Yeah, and like it's kind of turning into the wolf too a little bit.
Yeah, the wolf too. Yeah,
yeah.
It's one of those things you don't really notice as much until you actually look at a larger version of it.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. I always like that. Again, this is another card where like I wish I had more reason to play it, but like it's 6 mana, and I'm like, I can probably do more with 6 mana than create some 1/1s and 2/2s. Even though like I'm the fucking token guy, so even so, like I have a hard time justifying this, but this is one of those ones like I would probably just go all in, like make a Fable Wolf and Owl deck. And it's like, fuck it, I'm gonna make some weird overcosted tokens, deal with it. So. And
you can tell the Fable of Wolf and Owl. It's like, I kind of want to know the story behind it. They kind of give you just that one little sentence, but.
Yeah, what's the white and green one too? It's similar, it's not making tokens, but there's another, it's like the circle of sun and moon or something. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like that's, I don't know if that's Heather Hudson too, but those two, I think of those two, maybe it's just because it has the and in the middle of it. And I know that's not a real cycle, but like in my head it's a cycle, so it counts.
Wheel of Sun and Moon, that's also Zoltan Boros and Gabor Iskaskai.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Next one.
But that kind of goes with the whole like duality of Shadowmoor Lorwyn, like they're mirror images of each other. That kind of goes along with the reflections, which I'll talk about later.
Oh, that's true.
So,
yeah.
Imperious Perfect, Scott M. Fisher. So I again, it looks like an Alphonse Mucha kind of painting right there. I like Scott M. Fisher. I like the work that he's done. I just think it all comes together on this one. Again, it's the curved lines, it's decoration, it's the filigree of the plants that kind of look like metal. It looks like metal work, or it's thorns. The figure, it's obviously they've nailed it down. It's like, yes, it's human looking, but it's obviously too thin. The waist is just far too thin, and so it's like this. I also like the fact that the perfects were like the most cruel, the cruelest of the elves too. But they're the most beautiful too. So.
Yeah, like that whole, I don't know, Shadow Warrior in Lauren had like a whole aesthetic that just worked on so many different levels for me, you know? Like, I don't know what it was. I can't point to one specific thing, you know? But like, when you say, you know, like the combination of the perfects being the most horrible, you know, it's that crazy weird duality that I really get behind. Like, it's almost like I don't know, not to get too far up my own ass, but almost like a Zoroastrian thing. Like, you know, the light perfectly complements the dark, and there's so, like, it's in such weird combination between the two of those two things in all of it, in the art, in the lore, in the cards itself. I don't know. It's very cool.
If you take a look at the full art, it's even better. Just the full art image, like when they came out the extended art version that they had for, I'm not sure for a pre-release or what it was for.
Champ Special, I think, if I'm getting it right. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like you can actually see the hands rising up out of the leaves there. I think it's just kind of cool. Just the whole.
Oh yeah.
It's a completely balanced, symmetrical composition. Just very cool. So, I gotta stop using the term cool. That's not very art teachery of me. But, Lurebound Scarecrow by Nils Hamm. I'm as far as like new magic artists that have appeared in the past. I mean, he's not new because he's been doing it for almost a decade now, I guess, for magic and probably before that. But Lurebound Scarecrow, as much as I like clean lines and, very defined things, I also like sketchy because my own style it can be, when I work in my own style, when I do my own artwork, I start out very sketchily and sometimes I'll clean it up and sometimes I don't. But I really like Nils Hamm. Just a lot of his work, especially, I think the first time I really noticed it was like, the Strix, the blue-black owl, his death touch, he comes into play, you draw a card. That Strix was, one of the first times I noticed his artwork, and it's got like the metal filigree because it's from, Esper. But Lurebound Scarecrow, it's just creepy. Just the scarecrow, I really like the scarecrows in general from that set. Just because they're just put together with whatever happens to be sitting around, wicker and bones, and they tie it together with sinew or, whatever happens to be lying around. And the fact that it's kind of given the stink eye to this like little doll thing. So I just thought it was just a very, and it kind of tells a story, like what is this thing and what is it doing? But, again, I like the colors. Nils Hamm, or Hamm, I don't even know how to pronounce the name, but, he uses a lot of scale birds, I've noticed in his work.
Yeah.
He likes drawing crows and things like that. That's fine. He does use the scale birds, but I think it makes sense because he's a scarecrow. I like that. I like scarecrows in general. So, I've got a couple of drawings of those on my own, online portfolio. So, up next after that is Mind Shatter by Michael Sutphin. I like Michael Sutphin. He's an illustrator that has, he's done stuff for, let me see if I can find a bigger image. He's done stuff for like death metal bands. If you look at his artwork, he's done stuff, I believe, for like, just like certain death metal groups. And, I just like his style. I'm gonna say he's, again, it's more crows. That's another Lorwyn kind of trope there. Lots of crows. There's always crows around because things are dying or things are, I don't know.
I know what you mean though, but like this is out of a set. This is also out of, I don't know, it's out of a bunch of sets, but like this particular Mind Shatter always is super evocative to me. Like it always looks like, like his head's kind of dissolving and it's kind of not like reshaping into crows, but the crows are also kind of dissolving a little bit in the background. Like, I don't know, the fairy tale like artwork of his face with that dark fairy tale like you were talking about before, like that Eastern European influence in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Like, I don't know, like this is another one. This is almost like a dark version of the Brothers Hildebrandt,
Yeah.
Like that's it. I don't know. I really, really dig this one. So.
Let's see. Next one is Una by Adam Rex. I think this is one of my. I've always wanted to play Una as a commander, and I just haven't. But I like putting her in decks, just because I just love this. I love the artwork. The face, her face kind of coming out of the flowers, and that's the what are those flowers called?
Orchids?
They're orchids, but they're also, I think it's the same flower that is like super deadly in Lorwyn.
Oh.
Like the ones the elves used to put people to sleep and kill them.
Oh, no. Moonglove?
Yeah, I think it might be Moonglove. It's like foxglove, but they call it Moonglove, and just the little fairies around her, and just like I don't know, I just love the color scheme, and just the kind of dreamy look to her, and the fact that that's one of the things she does. She collects dreams, so it's almost a very dreamlike picture, but also, and then she is, she's Una, so she's magic's equivalent of Mab, right? But I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen, I don't know, Mab done the same way, so.
Yeah, but it almost seems like this is the way that Mab should be done, Like if you're gonna do Queen of the Fairies, like this is definitely it. Right. And I like that dreamy essence too comes through even more. Like one of my favorite old magic artworks is Nebuchadnezzar.
Okay.
Yeah, right, there we go. And like that kind of dreamy, like indistinct quality, like is still here. Like even though, it's almost like you can't tell if it's part of the flower or the top of her head is just kind of like hazy and indistinct, Mm-hmm. There's so much cool shit going on in this photo. Like you can see a little bit of the fairies that are kind of blending in and out of the background, the duality between the green and the blue, of the background, every just cool little thing. Like you can't really tell if she's wrapped in flowers or is part of the flower or is coming out of the flower. I don't know. It reminds me of like old school art in the best way, where it is like indistinct but very evocative. So,
yep. Yeah. And that's one of the things that, I think about when you're talking about the homogenized look of a lot of modern magic artwork, is that we can see exactly what's happening. I mean, there's nothing really left to the imagination. It's like, yep, that's a dwarf punching through something with a mechanical glove. It's like, yes, we know exactly what's happening. Whereas this, you're kind of like, what? Which kind of brings me to my next one, which is Overbeing of Myth, which could easily be like another kind of fairy queen sort of look to it. And I'm talking about the original one, not the pre-release one. But it's by Chippy, whose real name is Brian something. Brian Dugan, his real name, but he goes by Chippy. I like a lot of Chippy's artwork, but this is one of those cards where I looked at it on the card, I'm like, oh, that's a cool card, and the artwork looks interesting. And then I looked at they did like a flavor guide on the mothership, and I saw this, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. She's got like these owls, and she's like made up like these briars, and there's something in the middle here, and she's got this head wrap thing, and what exactly is she, and like what's that word? When it tells a story, but you're not exactly sure what it is, but there's definitely something going on here. So we're not exactly sure what she is. I think that's the kind of the cool thing about the idea of the overbeings and the demigods of Lorwyn Shadowmoor. They're all like embodiments of something, but they're kind of like how, like the Fae were like deadly, like they weren't always like innocent little creatures. They were deadly serious things you don't mess with.
Yeah.
So I think this kind of gives a really cool idea of like what these super powerful beings would look like. They have just enough detail to like, so we can actually look at it, but we're still not sure what we're looking at. It's like an amalgamation, kind of like the elementals from Lorwyn also.
Yeah.
Like they're just combinations of different animals and different creatures and things like that. So.
Yeah, I really dig this. I mean, but Overbeing of Myth specifically always gave me that like Fantasia, like specifically like Nine on Bald Mountain.
There you go. Yep.
Like that's what I swear to God, I hear that piece in my head when I look at this art, cause it's just like, because you can't tell, like it's so deadly looking, but it could just be, it's awestruck in the way that you don't know, like, I don't know, it could kill you or kiss you. Like,
right, yeah.
Yeah, I dig it. Like, and the fact that, it's covered in owls in the back, like, who knows? I don't know. So.
Who knows? It's got owls.
Yeah.
It's the, what do you call it? The wire mother from Psychological Experiments. She's got the food, but she also is made of wire. So, then I think the next one I have is Sage of Fables by Shelley Wan. Shelley Wan does not have very many magic cards as far as I remember. They kind of brought her on during Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, And I think she's an illustrator. She's since gone on to work for Disney and other companies. So
that makes sense.
She's doing just fine. But I really love Sage of Fables, especially the artwork. I'm not a big fan of Merfolk. I'm not a big fan of the fish. But I just think, again, a lot of it because you can probably look at it and say, yeah, this looks like it could be Rebecca Way. But just her colors, just the violets and the greens and the jewel tones essentially of the picture and the sinuous lines and and that, again, that's kind of the stuff I like. I like Therese Nielsen. I like Rebecca Way. I like the curved lines, and the snake wrapped around her. So, just thought it was really good. I would really like to see more Shelley Wan, but
yeah, you're right. She doesn't have very many. Yeah, I think like 18.
That magic money more. She's got Disney money.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, who needs Hasbro? Fuck it. Although I'm sure at some point Disney will buy Hasbro because they buy.
I was just gonna say they're gonna own Disney will own everything, and then everyone,
it'll be the company at some point.
Squee will be a goblin princess. For Disney.
Yeah, sure, why not? There is just a real quick shout out for Shelley Wan because I didn't realize she did this, but she does. One of the favorite like bad cards I love, and just it's solely based on the artwork is Punish Ignorance. The Shelley Wan artwork here is like, I don't know, it's classical in the same way that it's so cool, man. Like I'm
trying to look that one up. I'm trying to remember what that card looks like. Let's see.
It's almost like a figure of death reaching down and touching like almost the spirit of someone, like someone's soul coming out of their body. I don't know. It's very cool. It doesn't have, like, I'm trying to think of another, it's not Rebecca Guay-like, even though it is a little watercolory. It's not, maybe Greg Staples is the closest I can get to. It's very distinct though. Like, in Sage of Fables is that way too. Like, Sage of Fables doesn't really look like anything else,
Okay, I see it now. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, for some reason my thing wasn't coming up, but.
No, that's fine. Yeah, but very, very cool. I will like that a lot.
That's one of those spells that it's one of those magic cards you're like, I had no idea this existed. I didn't.
Yeah, right.
I don't own it. You think you own all the junk rares and.
Yeah, and then you look at it too, and you're like, this is a fucking rare, like a 4-mana counterspell, in a hard cast color too. You're like, this is not good. So
no,
you should be punished for playing this card.
You're ignorant for playing this. Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So what's your? I think. Oh, we're coming up to your last one. I think.
Yep. Yeah. I said I'd try to go through this quickly. I guess I'm a liar. But Vigor, just Vigor. The elemental incarnation. It's not quite a water buffalo, not quite a turtle, and it's got birds resting on it. I really like Jim Murray, especially from this block. I just love the colors, just kind of everything looks very kind of liquid and wet and verdant and green and, it's just a fun, Vigor is such a good card to begin with and it has great art. So, it's one of those ones that really deserves to be looked at close up. And I really appreciate, like I said, Jim Murray's artwork. He does a lot of good work with blues and greens. So,
definitely. Yeah.
And as I look up Jim Murray artwork, I can see a bunch of other ones that I like. So he's up there in those lists. So yeah, I would say Vigor. I guess that's probably my last one. But I think the birds really make it.
It really does.
The one stork is just like hanging out, chilling, like what's going on? Like he's gonna start doing Groucho Marx impersonations with a pickle.
Yeah, he's the best. Yeah, and,
he's a plastic bird.
He really nails that elemental feel too, because it's like it looks like the buffalo turtle just coming out of the moss.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so good. Like it's. I don't know, like, it makes no sense on one hand, but on the other hand, it totally makes sense, like
it's all the sense.
Yeah, like, it's just drawing from, like, every weird, like, soupy undergrowth of life, like, in a jungle or something. Like, it's so good.
I think that bird is kind of like challenging you. He's kind of looking at you like, go ahead, hit me, I'll get a +1/+1 counter.
Yeah. That would be.
I'm hanging out bigger here, my buddy.
Yeah, literally, like you mess with the bull, you get the horns. So
boom,
boom. Yeah. So that's your favorite from
those are my favorites from that block. Yeah.
Yeah, and that block is so like I was gonna pick that block originally, and then I figured, just like I figured before, that someone else would pick Rebecca Guay and like Therese Nielsen, like so
low hanging fruit.
Yeah, not low hanging fruit, but like they're just the best, right? Like I think like when you think even someone who's like a casual Magic player, someone who's at least knows that like they like some art over in others, like who's not going to pull out at least a one or two Therese Nielsen or Rebecca Guise, you know?
Yeah.
Because you look at that and it's so distinctive, and Lorwyn and Shadowmoor are so distinctive, like as a block. Like, you just look at the art, nothing else, and you can tell what block that's from. You know? And it's very cohesive, but not in the same way that, like Innistrad is very cohesive, but it's also very samey, it's very homogeneous.
Yeah. And I think it's because there's so many humans. There's no elves, there's no dwarves. It's like humans and then the nasty creatures. I guess vampires and stuff like that. They're still. Yeah,
they're just variations though. Like, you got like decaying humans and zombies. You got undead humans and vampires. You know, like, the weirdest you get is something like, I don't know if it was Chippy or Adam Rex. It was one of the other ones I noticed, you know, when you get into like Aberrant Researcher or, oh god, the modern staple, the fucking 3/1 flipper guy.
Delver?
Yeah, Delver. You know, like, when you get into that weirdly off-putting, almost like Cronenberg-esque, you know, like Jeff Goldberg in The Fly, yeah, that, like, ooh. But anyway.
The body,
the body horror?
Body morphism terror kind of stuff, like the terror from changing in the body, so.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like its whole separate thing. But, anyway, I will move on to mine, which is much less inspired and a much smaller set too. So, and I won't call out all of them. I have this ridiculously long list that I just pulled out. Like, usually when I do this for a show, I cut it down a little bit. This is me cutting down 10th edition, which is pathetic. But I only touch on a few that I really like. So 10th edition was my favorite. 10th edition is probably one of my favorite blocks in general. It's, like, the cards are really cool. I guess I'm not as huge a fan of some of the legendary creatures. Like, I'm not going to rock Ambassador Laquatus anytime soon, but a lot of the other ones are pretty cool. So, the first one I'm going to talk about is another Chippy art. So, Vampire Bats is, just a really cool, it's probably my favorite bat artwork, which is a weird thing to say, I guess, but, like, it totally nails it, you know, like this big, huge close-up of a bat right in front of the moon. It's like darkly orange, like you can tell, you know, either the moon is just risen or the sun is just set. It's just terrifying, weirdly specific. Like, there's something about a bat in general that always used to get me. Like, it looks like a mouse with wings, right? Until you get a little bit closer, and then you're like, no, that's totally not a mouse with wings. And then, like, that vampire aspect on top of it, that little, it's kind of like that undead thing, you know, it's like uncanny. It's very close to something normal, but it's not. There's something just off about it that I really like, so I really dig that one. And plus the landscape, parts in the back. I'm a huge sucker for a really well done landscape. That's just me. Speaking of well done landscapes, next one is Wall of Wood, from Rebecca Guise. Man, like, bad card, great. Again, like, clean lines, watercolors, like, like, I don't know. You can probably go down the list. Like, there's not a whole lot more to say about this than,
It's definitely a Wall of Wood. I like the way, like, it's before previous Walls of Wood. I mean, not that there were any stellar Walls of Wood that came out beforehand, but, just like the entanglement, you get that feeling like you're not gonna pass through this kind of thing. Like, well, at least that's the knotted up part anyway.
Yeah, like one of those fairy tale, like, labyrinth things, you know, like it has that weird, like, it's not necessarily menacing, but foreboding, you know? Like, I really dig that. On the total opposite end of that, Starlight Invoker. And I'm not gonna go through every single one of these, but I do want to call out Glenn Angus for this. Cause I'm just like, what the fuck is going on in this art? But I like it. Like, it's the most comic booky art. It's a...
Yeah. That's a reprint too, but...
Yeah, and I do like the fact that it's a mutant. Like, how many mutants are there in Magic?
I don't know, but he's shooting stuff out of his eyes.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, it's very X-Men to me.
Definitely a mutant thing.
Yeah, and that's why I really like it. Like, this thing looks like, if you change it, like, it looks like someone's, like, I don't know, dressed in wicker.
Right,
you know, like shooting shit out of their eyeballs, like shooting an LED flashlight out of their eyeballs. Well, I'm like,
I got stuff to say about Glenn Angus later. Kind of good stuff. Not bad stuff, just kind of good stuff, but.
I mean, Glenn Angus, like, if you held a gun to my head, I could not tell you another thing that Glenn Angus has done, but I kind of like this one just because it's weird, you know? There's not a whole lot there, I just kind of like it. Let's see, next one, Michael Sutphin joint, Cloud Elemental. I've always loved this art.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Like, it's just, for everyone, who doesn't remember, it's not like Cloud Elemental is this big thing, but I feel like I've played so many of these, like, in limited or kitchen table Magic, that you would probably know it when you see it. Like, Cloud Elemental has this kind of like pissed off face in the clouds in the background, a bunch of birds in the foreground, probably starlings, I would guess. I don't know if these are necessarily crows. Like I fucking know anything about birds.
They're all storm crows.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's very cool. Like it has the colors I think are the best here. You can kind of tell it as the weird purpley lightning, going through the clouds. Because again, like pissed off dude in the background. Very cool. Like the use of color is just very awesome. Again, I'm a sucker for a landscape. I'm a sucker for a good a good sky too. The next one I have, I love this card and I love the art. This is one of these rare times like it's not like I wouldn't just put this in a Reanimator deck just because, but man, do I love this art. It's a Vulcan Baga's Doomed Necromancer.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Vulcan Baga. Like, as looking through this set, he did a lot of great work here, that I'm not going to call out, but this one in particular, like, it has the Necromancer who's, I would guess, just finished, or he will shortly have finished, his little incantation, and there's a headless corpse just reaching out and grabbing him by the throat and like pulling him down into the tomb. Man, it's just so good. Like his Vulcan Baga in particular, like, I think you were the first one who called this out, Ward, about his, he must have been classically trained because he's so good with hands. Like I don't know if he did the reprints or the online versions of all the Moxen.
Oh, those are great. Those were one of the first things when I first like, I mean, I've seen his artwork before. I had seen it, but I saw when he redid the Moxes for those tournaments.
Yeah.
I was just like, he does metal. He could do, like costume design really well. He's good at setting up the scene. He's got, I mean, that costume looks like he actually went out and made it and then had somebody pose in it and then draw it. I mean, that's how good his metal work and his, leather and everything like that. It's just spot on. So
yeah, there's another one that's really good. I won't call it out here, but Sunken Hope out of this set is another really good Vulcan Baga joint. And again, like that one specifically, like the metal on the treasure and the armor and whatnot, really amazing. Another one, a guy who I just love Greg Staples' artwork, Hypnotic Spectre. And I know why I love this one. This is one of the rare times I can totally call it, because like this is a Nazgul. Right? Like this is like one of the 9. Like put on paper, like the compositions of like the sickly yellow, fading to like a really light orange and the black and the browns. Man, it's super evocative and creepy and like, I don't know, like looking at this card makes me want to play more Spectres, even though like, don't do that, people. Don't play more Spectres. There's a reason, no reason for it.
I think this is when, Wizards kind of officially said, yes, Spectres are all going to be figures, like cloaked figures writing something. Because I think before, like, Spectres, there were, like, other Spectres that were not exactly, they weren't writing something. It's like, I think this is when they basically said Archons are all good guys writing stuff, and Spectres are all bad black creatures writing something. I think that's when they kind of came through and said it, so.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Let's see, what's the next one I got? Paladin and Vec.
I was going to say one more thing about Greg Staples.
Oh, no, go for it.
The color, the way he did this, if you know who Frank Frazetta is.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, it's very much Frank Frazetta oil. It's very much Glenn Danzig Verotic. I mean, Frank Frazetta. Just the colors of the old Conan and stuff like that. So sorry about that. One of the things I kind of noticed as looking at it.
No, I mean, it's really good. I hadn't really thought about, Frank Frazetta for this because there wasn't like a girl in like boob armor. Which is,
right.
You
don't see the butt cheeks,
Yeah, exactly. That would be the other part of Frank Frazetta. Even though I love like his old Conan illustrations and whatnot, like it's so campy and but so good. Like, those oil compositions that he did. I mean, I don't know. I'm a sucker for some Frank Frazetta. Next one, it's funny now that you mentioned Frazetta, because there seems like a little bit here, but maybe I'm misidentifying it. Dave Kendall's work on Paladin and Vec. We had talked before about Vulcan Baga's costume design and his work with metals, and that's like, man, Dave Kendall just knocked it out of the park for me anyway in this portrait of the Paladin walking his horse in front of like a big archway. And every little scene, like every little detail, the scimitar on his waist and the cloth cummerbund he's kind of got. It's not a cummerbund. I fucking know that much, at least, about armor, but whatever, like, that's whatever it is. The weird the shoulder pauldrons, with the chains coming across it, and the bridle on the horse, and so good. Like, just so very cool.
Again, it's like they really did their research into what armor should actually look like. They just didn't make up stuff. And another thing I've noticed about some of the stuff, like some of the ones that you've done that are remakes, the art is so much better on these. I think that's probably one of the good one of the great things that come out of 10th was like some of the reprints. Not all, I mean, some of the reprints they use the same artwork, but some of them are just the new artwork was so much better.
Definitely,
so much more evocative of what they were looking for, I think.
Yeah, and like that's a function of probably a function of budget too. At some point, like I know back in the day, famously, they kind of pulled whatever artists they had around, other art students who were at the same school, I think, as Richard Garfield, because what else are you gonna do? You're not gonna pay famous artists for a thing that's just coming off the ground. That lasted probably through Legends and even beyond Into the Dark. As much as I like the Dark, that's definitely some art school art right there. Speaking of, I just shit on people for a talent I will never fucking have. I'm such an asshole.
Well, I see when I first started, when I was in college, when I was like a sophomore in college, I actually submitted to Wizards long time ago.
Oh, very cool.
Like one of those things I look back on with chagrin, like, oh, I was terrible back then. Not that I'm like super great now, but I was so much better now than I was then. I'm like, but looking at some of the quality though, I'm like, I can see why maybe I thought I had a chance.
Oh, absolutely. That early stuff? I mean, come on. I'm sorry. I know I shit on Amy Weber a lot, but fuck, man. Like, Amy Weber's work in Ice Age, like, you could have just handed that shit off to, like, anybody. I swear to God. I've seen better stuff come out of some of my students in high school than I have, in some of the old early Magic artwork.
We're gonna get mad. The Amy Weber fans are gonna get mad. Right?
Yeah, I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but they're so wrong.
Right in the streets.
Yeah. Next one, an artist you had called out before, Scott M. Fisher's work on Viridian Shaman. Mm-hmm. Man, this is just so, like the muted greens. I think I'm saying that right. Maybe I'm talking more about music, but like it's very low key, like white greens in the background, coming up to like, she's blowing up or reassembling. I think she's gotta be blowing up because the card is destroying a target artifact. But everything from her headdress to that weird Mirrodin thing she had. This must be a reprint from Mirrodin. But so good. Like, I don't know. I'm a big Scott M. Fisher, fan too. Cause a lot of this stuff is just, it kind of is what it is on the box. Like, it's an elf destroying an artifact, right? So we kind of get that. So some of the criticism I level at modern artwork or the more homogenized artwork kind of fits here too. But it's still like, I don't want to say haunting because it's not. It's I guess dense in a good way. Like the canvas itself, there's always a bunch of stuff going on, even in the background. She's probably in a bunch of rubble from presumably shit she's destroyed. But it's I don't know. There's something to it. Like the lines are, and again, clean lines and watercolors. Coming back to it. Even though maybe this is oil, I can't really tell the difference. What do you think, Ward?
I'm not sure. I think he has to work some in digital because some of the stuff he adds are digital effects.
Yeah.
So I know when he, like, telling time and stuff like, I think that's Scott M. Fisher. Telling time might be.
Mm-hmm.
But, some of it's obviously digital. So I didn't think he does stuff on top of it maybe. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
I'd have to really look up close at it, but, one thing I was going to know about Viridian Shaman, if you look at Viridian Corruptor, it's literally the same image, but she's been Phyrexionized. She's complete. If you notice that from Scars of Mirrodin or what do you call it? The second Mirrodin block.
Oh,
it's actually the same creature.
Yeah. That's very cool.
Corruptor. Yeah. Same creature, but it's fallen, so it's kind of interesting.
Is that Scott M. Fisher too?
No, it is Matt Cavada, who was also an art director for Wizards for a while too.
Yeah, I remember seeing a lot of Matt Cavada's art, specifically in that block too, I think. Let's see. Next one, let's skip down a little bit. An artist that I always really like, Kev Walker. Kev Walker's work on Clone, I really dig. Like that cool, haunting, like, gives me almost like a Clash of the Titans vibe when I'm looking at it. It's like an ancient guy in armor and this, I can't tell if it's like assembling or falling apart clone. he's obviously shocked to look at. Like, I really dig it. And one of the things I like most about Kev Walker, there's another card in here, I think he's working on Spirit Link, too. Like, his use of color in the background, particularly, I think he likes to, or it seems to me anyway, and the stuff that really jumps out at me is, he leaves it very bright around his subjects, and then it slowly darkens out to the edges of the canvas.
He does a lot with what I was going to mention. He's one of my top 3 favorite Magic artists, but one of the things that he does is he does a lot with atmospheric perspective. He does smoke really well, but everything in the background starts to kind of blend out because of, as you get further away, things get duller and duller. So he does a lot with atmospheric perspective. So I think that's one of the things you kind of notice about. I have a friend who's also an art teacher and plays Magic, and he says Kev Walker's just lazy and doesn't want to paint the background, but I think it's great.
that was pretty good. Let's see, I'll skip down a little bit. A card that I always kind of want to play, but it never makes the cut, but I do love the artwork, is Commune with Nature, which is Lars Grant West, who I'm not familiar with. Like, again, that's another dude. If you held a gun to my head, I could not tell you another thing that he has done. But, has this, like, shaman-esque woman, like, over a glowing skull pile, and then, like, kind of a dragonish thing in the background. Like, I don't know.
Kavu, actually.
Yeah, actually, there we go. All right. So maybe this came from an earlier set, maybe, but I don't remember it.
Or maybe they were going to use it and didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Like, it also has that kind of, like, Frazetta-esque thing going on. But very cool. Like, use of color is really neat. Don't know what the hell is going on in the background, but I don't really care. So, very cool. Let's see another one. Oh, another Volkenbage. Probably my favorite Volkenbage is Holy Day. That one, it's a huge crowd, big city in the background, and then all the swords are kind of rising up into the air. Probably one of my favorite pieces of Magic artwork. Like, if I was going to get a print of a Magic work, it might be Holy Day, followed quickly by, like, Bitter Blossom or something else. But I don't know, there's just something so... I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, you can tell, like, this is evoking the, hey, prevent all combat damage, Like, you can put this on Swords to Plowshares, too. Like, you put it on any kind of those, like, white and, no combat damage cards. But man, it's just, I don't know. Very cool, again, I gotta stop saying cool, too. Like,
he does the fabric super well. This guy has studied, like I said, classical. One of the things I like about some of those Eastern European artists is that they put it's also like, one of Calvin's favorite generals, what's his name? Red, White, Boros, Soldier, what's his, I'm trying to remember the name from Ravnica.
Oh, the,
Agrascos.
Yes. Yeah.
If you look at behind some of them, there's like statues, and the statues look like they're straight out of some like Eastern European, like fountain or something like that. So it's like, it makes me wonder, it's like, did he come up with that on his own, or is that taken from something more direct? But, yeah, it's just, like out of all the weird things happening in the picture, I think the fact that he set it in this place that's got this statue in the middle that looks like a fountain, I just thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, it does look like it's not copied, like definitely influenced by some specific classical work somewhere down the road. That again, I'm not smart enough to know, but I really enjoy. Next one, Story Circle by, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Alexei Bricklot? Bricole?
Yeah, that's probably what I'd say.
Something? Bricklot? Yeah, sure, we'll go with Bricklot. But anyway, like this one in particular, like the use of color, that screaming weird fire circle, like I'm a sucker for doing anything with fire, but just the streams of color that are coming through it too on the outside, he's kind of like, has that reality warping effect. Very cool. Like that's just, particularly I guess that would be the contrast between the brightness in the foreground and the dark colors in the background, but also that indistinct nature. Like it has that Cemetery Puka-esque thing of, the winding indistinctness, like of everywhere outside of the circle that character is in the center is really, really engaging for me. Like I just kind of want to like stare at the margins and then kind of work my way into the center of the photo.
Yeah, and again, it's a reprint that they just really knocked it out of the park compared to like the older Mercadian Masks version, I think. So. Yeah,
let's not talk about Mercadian Masks for art. That's just so Yeah.
There's not a lot from that block that I like, I don't think so.
That's a kind way to put it. The next one, there's so many in here that I really like of Carl Kricklow's, but if I had to call out one piece of nightmare fuel, it is absolutely Underworld Dreams. Like, again, like if I was gonna get a print of something, it might be Underworld Dreams. I think my wife would look at me strangely if I hung that on the wall. But, yeah, like, and I'm sure everybody knows it because it's the famous one that you always see for Underworld Dreams, you know, the weird eyeball spiders that are crawling from the ceiling and the mouth bats that are flying around. Just,
yep.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what the fuck any of this is, but I like it. Yeah. Like, it is disturbing in that strange, like, someone just, I don't know, accidentally stepped foot into your subconscious, you know, in the middle of a nightmare, and all of a sudden, like, and painted a portrait of it. Yeah, you know, his other work, specifically with Nightmare, is another one that I really love in here, but also, No Rest for the Wicked, are probably the top three Carl Kricklow's of this. And I don't know if he's done an awful lot of work at other places, but man, I really dig that. So.
Yeah. Especially this Underworld Dreams compared to the original Legends, it's just, the original Legends look like they were trying to, I don't even know what's going on, like somebody was trying to illustrate Dante's Inferno or something.
Yeah, it's so not good. Yeah.
I don't know what's happening. But this one, I mean, even though I don't know what's going on with the eyeball spiders, mouth bats, it could be phyrexia, I don't know, but it's just kind of crazy. So, yeah, I like that too. Yeah. The fact that he used black, and you can tell it's black, and he used a lot of black, but yet the colors, if you look closely, are just all variations. Like he does a lot with just like black and gray, and then with the I don't know, just the background, the oranges and yellows in the background, but just like the black and the gray up front, he does so much with that, almost monochrome, but it works so well with what he did.
Yeah, and it has that you know, like especially in the background, it has that. Like you can tell it's lit, but you can tell almost like it's lit by fires or torches or sconces or something. You know, it's that sickly orange, muted by
catacombs
black.
Of some sort.
Yeah, very cool. Obviously filled with eyeball spiders, which are so.
That's what you're gonna get though.
Yeah, you know, whatever. I mean, it's Underworld Dreams. What else would it?
Do you want eyeball spiders? Because this is how you get eyeball spiders.
Yeah. The answer is no, I don't. But I kind of like them. I kind of want a picture of eyeball spiders. It's kind of like, I don't know, like tarantulas in general. Like I'll watch like a good documentary on some tarantulas, but don't have like a, I don't know, tarantula pet. Like, first of all, probably don't have pets like that anyway. Just saying. But, you know, as I'm shitting on them. So, some of our listeners are like a pet tarantula out there and they're all pissed off at me now, but fuck that. Like, don't keep that shit as pets. I'm just saying. You know. Anyway. Next one, Upwelling, by Chippy. So, and again, I'm a sucker for a good sky. Like, Upwelling, this is a card I just want to throw in anyway, because it's fucking weird. It's the mana pool is still empty at end of phases or turns. And, like, I don't know how else you would illustrate this, but I get it from the photo. You know what I mean? Like, it has that, it's not that necessarily new art motif of, you know, like, whatever it is on the card is clearly illustrated in the art. Like here, you know, you have the cloud or the sun coming out from behind the clouds. There's almost like almost like a Tolkien elvish script in the halo of the light. And then there's the one, bird coming out to rest on a branch in the side. And it, you know, has like the fog moving into the clouds. Like almost as if you've ever had the experience of driving through a cloud bank, like if you're just driving up a mountain and the mountain's so damn high you're driving through clouds, is what it reminds me of. Yeah.
I think it's like the fact that like you said, it's kind of illustrating a concept. It's not like you're going to draw a centaur. It's like, no, you need to illustrate the concept of like mana that just keeps growing and growing until it reaches up into the clouds. So yeah, I think it does a really good job. It's in a green sky. It's like, you know, how do you make that look natural? But it looks pretty good. So.
Yep. I guess going completely back and making myself into a giant hypocrite, talking about illustrating concepts rather than things. Evacuation is my last card for this one. And like, Evacuation, man, it's so good. Like, first of all, I find myself playing this card so much more often nowadays just because I want this effect in blue and I play a lot of mono blue stuff. But, man, the art of just somebody's hands coming down, this weird like force lightning, and just sucking pieces off a chessboard. Like, this is what I want to do. Like
pissed off playing Catan.
Yes, exactly. You know, like if I had force powers, like, and I was just getting beat at a board game, this is what I would do. You know, like
screw flipping the table, just suck everything out.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd be like, oh, fuck you, take all your tiles. Yeah, so cool. I don't know, like. And again, when I see this, like, I think about what you said about Vulcan Boggin being classically trained about the hands. Like, hands can be so hard to do, but these are so evocative. The rings on it and the weird, creepy, long, talenty fingernails and
bifurcated fingernails. Those are really creepy.
Yeah, don't do that. Oof. Yeah, that's like, I mean, less creepy than a bifurcated tongue. Like, you'd probably still get a job, you know, if you have bifurcated fingernails, whereas you've severely limited your economic opportunities if you bifurcate your tongue.
It's like neck tattoos. You've made decisions about your career.
Yes, you totally have. It's probably not going to be in your favor. But you never know. So, you know,
we're just a bunch of boring teachers. What do we know, though?
Yeah. It's funny, a buddy of mine has, he has full sleeves and a bunch, he's all tatted up, and he teaches with me too. And, I guess they didn't figure it out, like my vice principal didn't figure out that he was all tatted up before, cause like you can't see it, you know, he's wearing a long shirt and whatever. And then a hot day came around and he's like, oh, wow, you have a lot of tattoos. He's like, yep. He's like, do I still have a job? And he's like, yeah, I probably couldn't sell the one past the board. So yeah, you're fine. I'm like, okay.
You're union rep. You'll be fine. You know Mark. He's the union rep.
Yeah. So it's really cool. Yeah. It was good stuff. So anyway, that one's all mine for 10th edition. I think I took way longer than you did for yours. But those are
it's okay.
some of the big ones for 10th edition art. Like, God, it's so good. Like that, it has to be probably one of my favorite sets in Magic anyway, just because of so many different reasons. But the art is like, I just like looking through that. You know, like I just looking through 10th edition. So many other ones I didn't call out, but I really wanted to. You know, like Telling Time, Sylvan Scrying. What the fuck is going on with Terror? It's always a good one.
Oh,
like Adam Rex's Terror.
Isn't it? Yeah,
it's so good. It's just like, what the what?
It's the best Terror ever. It's just like, what's happening? It's an anatomy lesson. It's just awesome.
Yeah, it's so good, and it's so bizarre at the same time. You know, like Plagiarize does that for me too. And I'm just like, that dude's got mouths for eyeballs and a giant eyeball popping out of a periscope. What the fuck? Sure.
Is that Jeremy Jarvis? I'm trying to remember who did that one.
Yeah, it totally is Jeremy Jarvis. Yeah.
That's one of my useless talents is I can recognize like a bunch of Magic cards just by the art alone. And I'll tell my other players, I'm like, oh, that's by, Jeremy Jarvis. And they're like, yeah, see, I told you.
Hey man, you know, everyone, you can't always pick your superpower. So
it's a lame superpower, I don't know.
Yeah, very cool. And one quick last shout out to Seismic Assault, which is just a pile of lava in a fist punching a bird. That's a Greg Staples favorite of mine. So that's definitely where I want to leave this this section on that. When in doubt, just punch a bird with lava.
Fair.
So that's it. I think we're gonna take a little break now. We're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about favorite Magic art and then probably not so good Magic art. So stick with us, folks. I promise this part will go much quicker than the last part.
Okay.
And in the last segment for today, folks, again, there's no technology segment because that doesn't make a lot of sense for this topic. But we're going to talk about our favorite and least favorite Magic the Gathering art, and then our favorite and least favorite Magic the Gathering artist. I'm sure this won't be contentious in the least, so we'll be good. So, Ward, we're going to keep this nice and quick. We're just going to go over a couple of cards. What is your favorite Magic the Gathering art?
All right, I have two. Mine are Descendants Path, and that's Therese Nielsen. I was deciding between that and Silver Skin Armor, and I just love the Art Nouveau look of it. It just tells a story. It's like you said, it's something that you could put up in your house, and people could look at it and say, "Oh, that's beautiful," and not question why you're putting eyeball spiders and mouth bats up. Okay, it tells a story. There's it doesn't even look like a Magic card. That's the thing that I like about it probably the most, which is kind of a hypocritical thing to say, but just the circles and the arcs, and I mean, if you haven't looked at a larger image of it, you probably have. It is listed as probably one of the favorite Magic arts I've seen. I've seen a lot of people like talk about it online. Just the subtle shifts in color between, like, she's got the overlay of the leaf. She has the cycles of the moon. She's got these ancestors that look like they were taken from old European photos, like something you find like in a pocket watch or like in a little locket. And she's got this little girl with a goat or a sheep. I'm like, I just love it. It's it is not what you think of when you think Magic art. You're like thinking, we need elves and dragons and vampires. She's like, no, we need a little girl with a goat with tree roots and a plow and field. It's just a beautiful just piece of artwork overall. I really, in my own artwork, I don't try to be exactly like her, but I take a lot of influence and try and tell a story or have some sort of allegory or some sort of narrative happening, and this just does it perfectly, especially when you look up close and you can see her use of the watercolor. She's really a mixed media artist. It's watercolor and acrylic for the more opaque parts. And she might even use like pen and ink. She might do, she just does overlay. She uses gold leaf and silver leafing in her, she uses, metallic inks. And I just can't say it. Even the script and the numbers and stuff like that, it's a calendar. It's like a farmer's almanac for Innistrad. That's what that is. It's the cover for the farmer's almanac in Innistrad. Yeah, I mean, so I really love that one.
It looks like a mural or like a piece of stained glass more than a piece of Magic artwork. It has that
stretched out in its full horizontal frame. It really is a mural. It's something, and I really love murals. Again, like I stated, from Michigan, and in the DIA and the Detroit Institute of Arts, there is a huge mural by Diego Rivera. You don't know who he was. Mexican painter, probably most famous for actually being the husband of Frida Kahlo. So we all know who Frida Kahlo is with, the unibrow and the paintings and the self-portraits and stuff like that. But there's a huge mural at the DIA, and it's one of my favorite pieces. I remember seeing it the first time when I was 8, and it was painted in like 1927, and Henry Ford paid him, a bunch of money to come paint this. And, but it's just a huge mural about Detroit industry. But it's very much like that. It's an allegory. It's not just one thing or two things. There's a whole story behind each piece and each section. So, that's probably if I had to pick one, pick one piece, that would be it. If, the other one I picked was, Dak and Blackblade. And that's more of my original favorite. It's Richard Kane Ferguson, so, it's already, but it's a Richard Kane Ferguson where you can tell exactly what it is. So I think that's kind of a rare thing. Yeah. Rare sometimes, especially with stuff like his Arcane Denial, like both versions. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. But in this one, it's like, yes, this is the quintessential badass with a sword and a shield. But there's so much attitude, and there's like it's the trees or whatever behind them are rocks, or I don't know what they are, because they have like this kind of vein tubing through it, and I don't know if it's exactly what it is. But Dak and Blackblade, he's so menacing looking, and the watercolor and just the splatter effect that he used, I just think it was great for a piece that's 1994. That's the year I graduated high school, so it's so long ago. But I love this piece, and I remember when I first started playing Magic, I had a friend of mine had a Quentin Hoover deck, and he had all the cards Quentin Hoover ever did. And then I decided I wanted to do all the cards Richard Kane Ferguson ever did. And then for a while there, I actually had the deck that was every single card Richard Kane Ferguson had done in Magic, all the way up to like Exodus, I think, when I was in college. I think when Exodus came out, like 98, I think. So I had the Richard Kane Ferguson deck, and I had this along with a bunch of other Richard Kane Ferguson cards autographed. I bought them at gaming convention. I bought them at Origins 1998, and I found somebody was sitting on a stack of autographed Richard Kane Ferguson cards from Legends, like even really crappy ones like Livonia Salone and
yeah, they're not all winners. Yep.
No, like Torsten von Ursen. No, wait, I can't. Not him. Oh no, the Casimir the Lone Wolf. There's like other ones, and Riven Turnbull, and all these Richard Kane Ferguson cards. But I loved my Dak and Blackblade, autograph from Legends. And then it was dumb, like so many dumb things that we do when we're young Magic players. We trade them away, and I just recently, just this year, got back. I found a copy of Original Legends deck in Blacklight, autographed by Richard Kane Ferguson. I paid not a stupid amount of money, but more than what that card is worth, just so I could have my autographed deck in Blackblade. And he's my general for my Esper deck for EDH. And just love love the colors, love the composition. Also, really quick thing. Back when Wizards used to have actual physical storefronts, there was one locally, at least down by Detroit, and they had a life-size deck in Blackblade. Like it was an actual statue of Dak and Blackblade in the window.
Wow.
And I just thought that was like a pretty cool thing. So
wow, that's wicked cool. Yeah, I mean, Richard Kane Ferguson is definitely one of my favorite artists. Like I talked before about how much I like Nebuchadnezzar. Which, by the way, Nebuchadnezzar somehow jumped to $23. Like, what the fuck? For the Legends?
Like the Original Legends, right? Not Chronicles.
Yeah, Chronicles is like 30 cents. It's a garbage card. But I mean,
the cardboard is printed on. But.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the art is so cool. I don't know. And that's another one, like one of the rare cases you can actually make out what's going on in a Richard Kane Ferguson art. But, yeah, like talk about like old school Magic artists that I wish would come back. Like, man, I don't even know if Richard Kane Ferguson is around anymore, but how awesome would it be if they tapped him to do another couple cards? I would be first in line to buy that thing. Let's see. So some of my favorite Magic the Gathering art. First one, I don't even know really exactly why I like this card. But Shelter is I don't know, like it's a weird, like, sci-fi Magic card. Like, it looks like it could be the cover of, like, a pulp sci-fi, like, Flash Gordon, like, fantasy serial novel. It just has a woman in front of what I'm guessing is, like, the shimmer of, like, a force field, and she's kind of leaning down, and I don't know what the artist worked in, but it's the contrast of the shadow and the light on her face and the image, like, I know I said this a million times and I wish I had better, vocabulary for this, but like haunting is the word I get. Like you can tell it's like caught in media res, like she's in the middle of a particular action, there's like a lull, or she's just like throwing up a force field or whatever the heck it is. I don't know, man, but like this card totally works for me on like a million different levels. Definitely love it.
I really like Christopher Moeller, the artwork, the artist that did this. I really like a lot of his cards. One of the things he's got is really high contrast. That's one of the ways I could tell Christopher Moeller artworks. He's probably most famous for doing like Umezawa Jitte, some other ones, but yeah, I do like this one. When you put it up there, I'm like, oh, cool, good. I mean, cause I really like Christopher Moeller. He's a comic book artist too. I know he's done Wonder Woman. You can kind of see that she almost looks like she could be kind of like Wonder Woman type figure.
Oh yeah, I can see that now. Huh. Oh, I'm gonna have to look up some of his comic book work then. Very cool. Let's see. My next one is one of my all-time favorite cards. At least favorite artwork for cards. I will play this card even though it is fucking garbage. Colossus of Sardia.
Unironically.
Yes, totally unironically. God, I just love the artwork here. Like, the muted, like the earth tones and the huge giant Colossus who's so big that his head is buried in the clouds. Like, man, there is no better example to me of like the difference between old art and new art than like old antiquities version Colossus of Sardia, which looks like fucking Wicker Man.
My least favorite Magic artist is the one that did the original one.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, shocking, right? Fucking garbage ass Wicker Man-esque Colossus of Sardia. And then 10th edition, man. The 10th edition Colossus of Sardia. So fucking good. I will even throw a quick shout out to Hannibal King's 5th edition Colossus of Sardia. It's not bad, but 5th edition not known for its amazing stuff. It looks more like a Sphinx. But 10th edition, just like this huge mountainous giant 9/9 creature. You get that sense of scale that you don't often get. Even from other Colossi. Even from like Darksteel Colossus, you don't get the same sense of scale that you do here. Like,
it's the definite perspective of being on the ground and seeing this thing coming towards you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, love this. And then, my last shout out, for Hell's Caretaker. So, man. Alright. I think I went back around with Adam on this one. Adam likes the Legends Hell's Caretaker. I'm not talking shit about it. That's fine. That gives me like a Night on Bald Mountain feel too. But 9th edition specifically, Hell's Caretaker, I own like probably 6 or 7 of these cards. A, because I can't stop doing dumbass Reanimator stuff, but also like, man, it's, again, Greg Staples' work on this Caretaker, like, it just has that weird, like it's that dark, mythical, like, like Pluto in the underworld type thing going on, like I don't know, like when I envision hell, or like a caretaker in hell, or like any kind of humanoid figure in a just inferno-like area, like Hell's Caretaker would come to mind. Like I love the oranges in the background, the smoldering fires that are kind of all around, the weird, the angle of light, but the stalactites, the dark stalactites hanging down in the foreground, like, so good. So good.
Yeah, I like the fact that they really kind of, the hooded area, you can't see the face. It's like they didn't say, boo, I'm a zombie, because it's not. It's a horror.
Yeah.
But I think they really put it across the fact that that thing is like, it's alive, but it shouldn't be. It's like not undead. It's like it should have never been born kind of thing. And the cloak, the cloak kind of turns into the floor of the cavern. So that's another kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, also because, again, I said before, like, I'm a big video game player. I'm a huge Dark Souls fan. This is so Dark Souls. It's like painful, you know? Like, it so nails that aesthetic that just beaten down, worn, like, this thing is so old, it could be coming out of the chair, like, the exact same color as the chair, you know, or just like a throne-like stone dais that it's on. Yeah, it totally nails it. Like, that evil, corrupted, like, that sense of just, like, slightly disturbed, like, time that has just, like, infiltrated every area and every aspect of this little cavern that it lives in. Totally love it. All right. So we went over our favorite and least favorite pieces of artwork. Let's dive into everybody's favorite, talking some nice sugar and some smack about some artwork, or about some artists. So, Ward, you have a 3-way tie for your favorites, and we've talked about it again, but we gotta, you know, might as well, put the cherry on the top, the bow on the podcast here with your 3-way tie for favorite magic artist.
Okay. Three-way tie. And then really, honestly, it is a 3-way tie, but it's Kev Walker, Therese Nielsen, Rebecca Guay. And many other honorable mentions, but, I like this tie. And like I said, I like being able to see the artist's hand and see how they work and see the process. And I'm sure I could do that if I sat there and watched a digital, like fast forwarded motion of some of the other artists, but I like being able to look at it and say, yes, I know how you did that, and I'm amazed at the fact that you were able to do that, because I know how difficult it is to do that. Whereas it's my fault entirely that I'm not a digital artist. When I see that, I'm just like, oh, that's cool, but I don't know how you got there, and I don't know the work, and I don't know what went into it. So when I see these 3 artists, and I see their use of, like I said, Kev Walker and his use of atmospheric perspective, and how everything looks very shiny and like very smooth, and Therese Nielsen, for her just the storytelling ability and mixed media, and then Rebecca Guay for just being straight up old school fairy tale, but also, just her line work, just the simplified line work along with the color, just the warmth of the color, even when she's working in dark colors, just the warmth of it. I just really love. I will go out of my way, like even in a deck, I will go out of my way to make sure I have the version. If they do a version, I will go out of my way to get the card that I need. Even if I don't own it, like Puppeteer, I think Master Puppeteer or something like that. There's a like tap or untap target creature. Mm-hmm. There was a version, I think 10th edition is Kev Walker. I went out of my way to get that version because I didn't have it. I would love to have the Therese Nielsen Guru lands. I'm not gonna do that, but even Therese Nielsen planes from what do you call it? The first sliver cycle, Tempest. I think the Therese Nielsen planes are worth more than regular planes for some reason, just because
really?
People really like her art. Yeah, they're like $1.
I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. You know, like Magic players like Therese Nielsen, like yeah. And
then when they do special versions like the Mother of Runes and Path to Exile, like Rebecca Guay's Path to Exile, and just things like that. I love those things, and if I can go out of my way to get like the promos and stuff, I will do that, just because I have a real appreciation for what they do as an artist, and trying to struggle and do stuff. Just seeing what they can do is just amazing. So.
Yeah, definitely love it. Mine, I'm not going to go over into too much detail, as I talked about them a bunch before, but Greg Staples and Vulcan Baga, those are my 2 favorites. Again, I can tell, like, Vulcan Baga has that almost like Renaissance-esque quality to me. I know it's not the Renaissance because it's totally different, but it's evocative of that without completely aping the styles. Like, the styles are different, and I can tell that they are, even with my limited vocab for art. But that's what it has, like a classical, I don't know, like it evokes a classical imagery to me, like we're talking about like Holy Day with the setting on top of the fountain in the middle of the square. And then Greg Staples, like, there's a lot of stuff that's very haunting about his work, like Hypnotic Spectre, Hell's Caretaker, but also like his sense of scale when he needs to do it in Colossus of Sardia, a lot of his other work. Like it just really draws my eye, in a, I don't know, a very captivating manner. So those two definitely. All right. Now on to a nice way to end off the podcast, I guess, because it was inevitably going to come to this. Absolutely. All right. So tell me why Jesper Mirfor is just fucking terrible. In addition to Colossus of Sardia, that's Exhibit A.
God bless him. Jesper or however you're going to pronounce it. They're one of the two magic artists with the first name of Jesper. He was one of the early artists, and you can just do a gather search or like just look at a search, and just so much of it is just, I don't know. It's very flat. It's very flat, and then sometimes it's just plain lazy. And I can imagine, if you were Richard Garfield, you come up to me, let's like somebody had said, "Hey, can you do some artwork for me?" And maybe he wasn't willing to pay, but then you come up with stuff like Word of Command. It's just a pair of eyes, and they're not even realistic looking eyes. They're not even fully formed. It's just bad. It's just really bad. And then camouflage. I'm like looking at camouflage. I'm like, okay, I think it's an elf maybe with horns, and it's kind of blending in. It's like you went across the canvas. But this was the kind of stuff that I saw as a young, as a sophomore, freshman college artist. And I'm like, I can do this. I mean, I could literally at that time do that. But I mean, again, he's got magic cards and I don't. So,
oh come on, man! Who looks at Boris Devilboon and doesn't think like, "Fuck, I saw better shit on a Trapper Keeper." I saw my friends doodle on the corner of their math homework that was better than that.
Even Circle Protection Black. It's like, well, it's black, and I'm protecting the black with this circle here.
All right, my I don't know, favorite ironic piece of Jesper Mirfor's artwork is Bad Moon, which is just a moon with a sad face on it. Like,
there's no question that bad.
It's a bad moon. Look at that moon. Like, he's so unhappy. It's a bad moon. And
the cool thing about Jesper Mirfor is this, though, he got to do so much iconic stuff. That's the kind of, because he was so early in the game. He did a Tog back when it was just like smiling. It was just emaciated grimace from McDonald's. He got to do. He got to do the original duels. He got to do what? Scrubland and Tropical Island and Tundra. So, jeez, that's pretty darn good. And he got to do original Will of the Wisp. Now, he does have a couple of, I think he actually does have a couple of successful ones. I think he did a really great job on Elves of Deep Shadow.
I do like that
one.
He
broke his rules. He broke the rules of perspective, because if you look at almost every other piece of his artwork, when you're looking at him, it's looking at him dead on. And it's something as an art teacher I would never say. You want your subject smack dab in the middle, dead on, and looking at you. It's like you got to do some rule of thirds here for like photography or something, and change up the where the thing is set up. But if you look at a lot of other stuff, just like, yep, Witch Hunter looking at you dead on. Yep, Sisters of the Flame looking at you dead on. Yep, Scathe Zombies all looking at you dead on, except for one dude. The Golem, Living Lands, Moss Monster. I mean, everything is just looking, Pestilence. It's just all looking at you dead on.
So fucking bad. So bad. Like, the only time I think he gets away with the looking at you dead on thing is when it literally doesn't have a face. Banshee, I actually like.
That is good. I mean, I think these are ones that he took more time on. That's what I'm thinking. Like, maybe he had these in reserve. It's like, well, I've got these. And again, notice what set they're from. They're from the Dark, Mark.
Yeah.
They're Elves of Deep Shadow from the Dark. Yep. Even Eater of the Dead, which is crazy in Phoenix, and actually an interesting, even though it's looking at you dead on, it's actually kind of an interesting thing. Like, what is that thing? It's a goat dog with eyes in its shoulders, and
it's definitely like a Cannibal Corpse album cover from the 90s.
Yes.
But I'm down with that too. Sure, I can get behind that. Like, Season of the Witch, I actually really dig. Again, from the Dark though. So,
yeah. I mean, he took a really big step up from the Dark. I mean, okay, Sister of the Flame was from the Dark, but the Fallen, genuinely a creepy. Even though it's looking at you straight on, it's genuinely a creepy picture.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, that one actually is really good.
Creepy. People say it's Jerry Seinfeld. I've seen people say that's what magic look like. That's undead Jerry Seinfeld. I'm like, okay. Why do people play magic?
I can't place the Fallen, but it definitely has that quality of like, I mean, we're both old enough to remember like wandering through the video store, on like a Friday night.
Demons. Yeah. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, it definitely has that quality to it. I'm like, bad like VHS horror movie. I'm like, all right, I'm down with that,
It was a Demons was, I think, a Dario Argento movie. If you look up like that movie and look up the way their eyes glow, that's what it reminded me of the first time I saw The Fall, and I'm like, ooh, those are creepy.
Yeah.
So,
but largely fail though for Jesper. Yeah. Definitely largely fail. So
whatever he's doing now, I'm sure he's doing fine. But I just if I have to pick a bad one, it's pretty much that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Who's your worst, Mark?
Ooh. So I've already talked enough shit about Amy Weber to last many podcasts, so I don't need to go into it again. And again, Exhibit A through Z is just look at the fucking Icy Manipulator art from Ice Age and tell me that I'm wrong, people. Just try. However,
some people like it. That's
sure, fine. I guess some people like a lot of things, though.
Yeah.
I can't.
Some people like Vegemite. A whole continent of people.
Exactly, and they're so wrong. So I can't. All of our Australian listeners are now pissed off at me. All one of you. So
I was gonna say both, but yes.
So anyway, so I've shit on Amy Weber enough. I hope she's doing something that doesn't involve art, and she's very happy and successful. However, Jeff Laubenstein is the other one. There is one Jeff Laubenstein piece of art that I like, and that is Show and Tell, because it's goofy, and it's childlike, and kind of whimsical, and I'm like, alright, fine. Everything else this dude has done, it's just, I scratch my head, I'm like, what the fuck? He hasn't actually done very much in the way of art. I think it's 24 cards he's done. But the ones that I play, particularly, are, Jesus Christ, Martyr's Cause.
Yeah.
Which I'm just like, what the fuck? His faces just bother me.
Yeah, it's kind of like
that
Foglio effect where it's just attached to cartoony for the product, I think.
Yeah, I just don't I don't get anything that's really going on there. I love the card though. And then Miscalculation is the other one. I'm like, I get it. You I don't know, you surprise some people. For some reason, Karn looks like I don't fucking even know. It looks like he's made out of Play-Doh here. And the other people somehow got dreads because they're so scared.
I think it's because they exploded and it blew their hair up like Warner Brothers, cartoon style. It's like Daffy Duck looking down the end of the shotgun barrel kind of.
Sure, okay, we'll go with that. I don't know.
It's duck season, Mark. Just go with it.
Yeah, I just can't.
It's Chinatown, Mark. Forget about
it. There's so much of Mr. Laubenstein's art that I just can't get behind. And
I like it when he doesn't do people. How about that? His Sliver, Scragnoff. I think when he doesn't do people, they're kind of interesting. Clot Sliver's alright. Dolphy Horror.
Clot Sliver I can get behind, I guess. Copper Gnomes. Although you could argue that gnomes are like people. But I can't get behind the art for that because that makes... Ugh. Even though I love that card. I will totally get behind that card. It's a great card. How about this? Cartographer is him doing a person that doesn't look cartoony to me.
Yeah.
It's not terrible.
That's pretty close to...
yeah, that's a thing. But then again, you look at Caltrops. And you're like, fuck this. So...
the sad thing is, it's I'm going to make fun of these people's artwork, and yet I'm going to probably give you my link for my portfolio online, and people are just going to look at it and say, well, fuck you, you don't know how to draw. I'm like, well.
No, because you didn't do, no, Ward, I'm not going to let that stand, because you didn't do Apes of Wrath, right? Apes of Wrath is like angry, bald Goodfellas in the jungle. Fuck this art, man. I can't.
Oh. Man, I've seen those guys.
Yeah, it's bad.
They're wearing t-shirts that say "Make America Great Again."
Yeah, exactly. It's so bad.
And we lost our Trump listener.
Oh well. They'll go. I don't know. They'll console the Australian listener over a Vegemite sandwich and talk about everything was better back before. We used to let X people in the country. So it's fine. Whatever. But, to wrap up this one, I think we kind of talked about the best and the worst. Are there any other last thoughts about magic art in general that maybe we didn't cover?
I think you and Adam talked about how it used to be, it was so diverse before, and now it's gotten to the point of being the homogeneity is just somewhat out of control. And I think Kaladesh and Amonkhet really, it was just, a lot of it was so boring. I mean, even though it was a cool setting, both are cool settings for a kind of an India, Pakistani, Asian setting, and then for an Egyptian setting. I mean, two really cool settings and cool ideas behind it, but I think just the artwork has gotten so regulated. And that's a good thing. I mean, Wizards obviously they know what they're doing. Hasbro knows what they're doing with Wizards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's doing really well now. But I think it's okay if we kind of go back to a little more not so literal. I think it'd be great if we, in the general direction, if they eventually start doing a little, allowing their artists a bit more freedom to do stuff that doesn't have to be exactly to the style guide. I think that would be a great step forward.
Yeah, a little more conceptual, than anything else. Like, speaking of the dark, which is, Andy talked about it before, cards in the dark are empirically more powerful than cards not from the dark. And I think that holds for artwork too. Like the artwork on like Ashes to Ashes, like some good old Drew Tucker art, super conceptual. You get what that is, right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't need I think it's like the 5th edition when they changed the art to that, which is fucking garbage, Doug Keith art. Like it's just like I don't know. It's like a wizard, like Gandalf's having a migraine, and then there's like a dead person in front of him. It's so bad. Like you don't need that. Like the conceptual art that used to come before, I think there really is something to be said for that. Like you can kind of let the reins loose, even though you're gonna get some weird crap out of that.
As artists, that's one of the things we love doing is like stepping outside that. I went to school for illustration, and then I switched to painting because I realized if I was doing something for somebody else and I had to do it in the exact way, when I've done that, I've actually had to do that before. Like I did some artwork for a catalog, a company that made like ponds and stuff like that, and they wanted to show koi ponds, and they wanted it exactly how they wanted it, and I had someone else dictating to me exactly what they wanted, and that was it was no longer fun. It wasn't my love anymore. It wasn't art. It was work. It wasn't something I could get lost in. It was like, holy Christ, I've spent 18 hours on this already. Why am I, I'm doing it for the Christmas money. That's why I was doing it at the time. But it's just, when you let artists have a little more control over what they do, you're going to get some phenomenal stuff. And I think Wizards is going to do that. I think they know what they're doing there. I'm sure the art director knows what they're doing. So.
It is, yeah. The last thing I'll say is I'm a fucking terrible husband by saying this too, but my wife got me an art book of Kaladesh for Christmas, which I really do like. But looking through the art for that, you can tell the very staid nature. Like they were very directed in what they had to do because they all fit the theme, but it's more than fitting the theme than saying like Shadow War. Like Shadow War, like it feels like they kind of gave them a direction and said, this is kind of what like elves look like, and this is kind of what like merfolk look like, and then go for it. With this one, it's like this is exactly what we want here. We want that filigreed metal texture on like fucking everything. This is what a gremlin looks like. Like this is the thing. Now go replicate it in your art. They were very like following a process, and just like you said, like I think it kind of just sucks the soul out of it a little bit more, and kind of just makes it a little more generic than I like. So.
And we got through an entire long episode without talking about balance. There we go. See, we didn't make fun of balance.
See?
But yet we did. I don't know.
Happens. Well, hey, Ward, thank you very much for coming out, man. I know I've sucked up way more of your time than I meant to. So we're going to wrap it up here and then move straight into the outros. Yay, outro. And that's it, folks. At the end of a long and winding artistic road, we do have to say goodbye. So, Ward, thank you again for coming out, man. You were a super awesome guest, much more knowledgeable than I ever would have been about any of this stuff. So, thank you for helping put into words like some of my rambling, just, I like that art, it's kind of good, I like colors. So.
That's why I get paid the big public school teacher bucks,
Absolutely, brother. So, I'll let you get back to your Bentleys. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, we're going to be smashing the bottles of Cristal just because we have extra ones lying around tonight. So, it's fine. So, Ward, where can people reach you if they want to get a hold of you?
Easiest way, just email me at kinghonky, it's HONKEY, at gmail.com. And I'll put a link up in the show notes, or I'll send a link in the show notes for my portfolio.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's dadsquatch.foliopx.com. It's a free one. It's pretty good free. It's kind of like around the same quality like Squarespace. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool, man. All right, and Adam's not here this week. We're going to do a part 2, listeners, with me and Adam talking some sugar and some smack about some other stuff. This one will be more... Next time, at least, you won't have to listen to more of me talking about, I don't know, how much I like Tolkien and comic books. So...
I'm looking forward to hearing him talk about art. So he's got some bold strategies there, Cotton. I want to hear what he's talking about. So.
Yeah,
Some are really good. I really agree with him on a lot of them. So got an eye.
Yeah, definitely, and he's much better at putting into words than I am. So this will be much better in an audio format. So anyway, stick around for that one next week, folks. So you can reach CommanderCast at commandercast@gmail.com or tweet at us at CommanderCast. My email's in the show notes if you want to really get up me about that Triskelion, or if you take issue with me shitting on Amy Weber and Jeff Laubenstein. There's probably some Laubenstein defenders out there somewhere. I like show and tell, so before anyone gives me shit about it, I would prefer, how about this? The highest credit I could probably give Jeff Laubenstein, I would take the old show and tell over the new show and tell. How about that?
Yeah. The new one's just like a scene out of Transformers or something.
Yeah, I'm not really down with that weird, yeah, I'm not down with that, so it's fine. Whatever. Give me squids coming out of a package in the middle of a classroom. Sure, I'm fine. And with that, folks, be sure to check out our CommanderCast Facebook page, and a big thank you to everyone here at the CommanderCast Network. We will see you guys next week with more community, just community and art, really. I would be lying if we said strategy and technology at this part. So, come back for some community and art in an audio format. You made it through this one, how bad could the next one be? So until then, let's get it!